go.
Let's do it then. Welcome everybody for another episode of the Group Up Podcast. It's been a couple weeks since I said that, but we are back, and I brought an awesome squad with me to discuss the great Season 10 debate. New seasons upon us, new heroes upon us, new problems upon us, and I brought a squad to discuss them all. So, in the bottom right is my man Spilo with the Sigma Thanos behind him. What up, Spilo?
Nothing much. Appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Thanks for coming through. These guys getting creative with the background. Since Sam has stopped using the Lijiang Tower now, we've had to get people with more creative background usages. So maybe not Flats yet, but we'll get there. Flats got a stable background. In the bottom left, we have AVRL. AVRL, talk me through your background.
Yeah, I cycled through 3 backgrounds in preparation for this, and Spilo said, "Oh, I'm disappointed you're not using a background for one of my videos." It's like, okay, well, we can do this, and so we cycled to this because we thought this would be the funniest. I haven't even seen this video, Spilo. You'll have to explain this to everyone later because I don't know what the context of this is at all. This was just the funniest thumbnail you had on your YouTube. So really, I'm just promoting you today. That's what I'm doing.
Appreciate it.
It's true. Shout out Spilo. Go check out his content. And in the top left, with me and Flats at the tops with the normal backgrounds. It's my man Flats. Flats, what's up?
Hanging in there. It's coming off a long week of streams, so you know how it is, but doing all right.
Yeah, you've been putting in that shift with the new season, but I'm glad you could join us. I'm glad you could be here. Appreciate you being here. And on that note, guys, let's discuss this new season. We'll start, as we always do, with the general thoughts. I want to hear how you guys have felt. How long is it now? It's been just over a week, or just about to be a week since the new season. So how are we feeling overall about Season 10? Spilo, you first.
I mean, coincidentally, with the thumbnail that Avril is using, I was kind of a little bit less than impressed. It felt, I think, leading up to this had been a lot of good changes. I think obviously Season 9 had a lot of good feedback, and then overall, it felt like progress is never linear. There's always ups and downs and trying out new things. But I think this was like the first patch in a while where it felt like some of the changes that we'd had were just kind of like what I hate to say, typical Blizzard things where they just like tweak random knobs on random heroes that don't really address any of the issues with the character. Nothing enough to like really do anything earth-shattering in the meta necessarily, but it's always like one of those like, well, then why tweak it? I think it's just, I wonder if there's like some sort of psychological reason why they tweak those knobs, if nothing else, just to cause conversation. Because like I look at like the Life Weaver changes or like the AVRL changes, and I'm just like, why? Like why? That doesn't address the hero, doesn't fix anything. So I think it was one of those patches where it's like, I think Venture was like a big plus. A lot of good things to say about Venture. And there's like, obviously there's a lot of like, besides the balance changes, there's a lot of cool things that have kind of come up and around. But in terms of the patch notes, it's just like, meh. Pretty meh.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, that's a lot of good topics that we'll talk about. There's a patch there mentioned, Venture mentioned, a lot of other things. We're going to talk about wide and narrow matchmaking, which has been a sort of a hot topic recently, especially amongst high elo players. And we'll talk about as well the new game mode Clash that we've gotten a preview of, although I doubt we've played too much of it ourselves. Avril, what are your overall thoughts on the start of Season 10?
These are my thoughts. Damn, it didn't show as what I wanted, but it's hang on, what if I do this?
We'll try again.
These are my thoughts, guys. These are my thoughts, guys. How do we feel about that? The audio listeners won't understand this joke at all. But the whole time,
over.
Here's
I don't know. I'm talking over you as well.
Here's the closed caption. Avril plays a video of Spilo behind him. There you go, audio listeners.
So I've upgraded from, because you said Lijiang Town. I was like, hang on a second, that's an animated video. What if I stepped it up by doing something animated as well? So he was like, I have the technology. That's what I've done. No, I think most of my thoughts today will be centered around probably, I have a lot of thoughts around game modes, because I was probably one of the most vocal people when Push came out about that game mode. I had a lot less about Flashpoint, because I think Flashpoint was generally fine, although not particularly exciting. But yeah, I mean, we've probably haven't played the largest amount of Clash, but I still think I got some thoughts about the game mode, regardless of the playtime, because there's maybe some issues with it. It's generally probably like a fine game mode, but probably just a couple things need to be solved about it. And obviously the queue times and the grouping seems to be a bit of an issue right now for queuing for a reasonable amount of players. So yeah, those seem to be issues. I guess we'll talk about the patch stuff as well, but like Spilo said, there's not a lot there actually. Like the patch is pretty small, which actually might be a good thing overall. Some of the notes are kind of interesting. I think the ball change is probably the most interesting to talk about. We got some thoughts from Chasm on that when he posted publicly. But maybe it's actually a good thing that the patch notes are small because it probably shows that the game was in a reasonably okay state, like a reasonably good state. And actually, for me, I was like, when Season 9 rolled around, it seemed pretty good. So I actually didn't want the game to change too much from Season 9. So maybe it's a good thing we didn't get too many changes.
Now, Flats, are you of that sentiment? I know you usually are in favor of quick patching. Were you kind of like, yeah, I'm happy with Season 9, don't do too much? Or are you a bit disappointed with what's happened?
Nah, probably my least favorite season in a long time. I feel like a lot of steps forward we've had in the last couple months, but this is probably the first season I felt like was a real step back. Let's not even go into the whole can't even queue a rank game if you're in a duo. Like it's legitimately impossible. And you really understand how strong propaganda is because you get people that are like, well, obviously you're in a wide group, so yeah, you have 2 GM5 players. Like you fucking stupid. Like hello. But yeah, balance wise disappointing. Orisa just running everybody over. Honestly, and I was doing a little tier list last night and it was like sad because honestly, a lot of the tanks feel sort of balanced, but like they still feel like absolute shit. So it's like, man, dude, are we fucked? It's like a weird realization season on that part. And yeah, I agree with Spilo and what he's saying. Like, it's Blizzard Classic, small knobs, they turn like randomly, and that plus, it just didn't seem like that very much of a hype of a season. Not really a whole lot. Like obviously Venture was cool, and getting to playtest early, I think there's probably an argument that makes it a little bit less exciting because it's like, okay, like everyone's already played them. But at the same time though, even something as simple as like OWCS not having Venture playable, I think is kind of dumb because like I think a lot of people probably tuned in this weekend was like, oh, are they gonna play Venture? And it's like, no Venture. So I don't know, it's just like so many little things I think added up for at least for me. But yes, so far not impressed, and I would say I was a lot more upset probably closer to the beginning of the week than I am now. But like I wonder how much of that is just like accepting it and just being like, well, it's just gonna be probably a not great season. Oh well.
That is disappointing to hear, and it seems like overall the sentiment from my guess is that you're not all too bright on season 10, which is a shame because I think towards the end of season 9, looking forward to season 10, it felt like it was going to be a really great season. It felt like we were going to get awesome changes to the competitive system that allowed you to stack with your friends. We're going to get Venture, who I would say was one of the most looked forward to DPS since their announcement. Like everyone, like when they played Venture was like, oh, they seem really fun. Everyone really took to the character. Everyone really took to the voice actor. So it felt like we were in a really good spot going into season 10, but from what it sounds like, there's been a lot of misses. So let's get through all of those then. Let's go to each of them piece by piece, starting with the patch notes because as AVRL said, it's not very long, but I do want to touch on them and specifically what Spilo mentioned. So I'll just read through what's here, and then if there's anything specifically you guys want to flag up, just holler, just yell and be like, hey, let's talk about this. But I think there's unlikely that we're going to be talking too much about any specifics, but chances are we'll overall want to talk about the big picture changes.
I'm just getting ready because last time we did patch notes, last time I was here anyway, that was the whole show. That was like 4 hours of patch notes. So
it's true. But that was big. That was big. These, unless you have a lot to say about this following one, AVRL, I'd be surprised. Doomfist Rocket Punch, the empowered punch is no longer consumed when the windup is cancelled by using Seismic Slam or Power Block. Hello guys, SEB here, and the Group Up podcast is back, and I'd like to take just 30 seconds of your time to talk to you about 2 quick things. Firstly, Patreon. If you enjoy the content, then please do consider supporting directly, because Patreon takes only about 10% of the money you give, where YouTube and Twitch take 40 and 50% respectively. So if you'd like to support the podcast, then that is the best way to do so. Secondly, if you're someone who enjoys video essays or detailed analysis of movies, TV, or anime, then please do check out my second channel, The Soak, where I'll be making videos about those kind of topics much more frequently, and where a lot of my attention will go beyond just Overwatch. It would mean the absolute world to me if you guys would check it out, but that's it for now. Let's head back to the discussion. I'll just say, any thoughts, guys? Anyone want to yell at anything, or should I move on?
I love quality of life stuff. Love quality of life stuff.
Just throw your thoughts in. I'll pause for a second and throw your random thoughts in. Junker Queen, Carnage being her axe, her impact damage increased from 90 to 105.
Thumbs up for me.
Closed caption.
Should
I
have
like
happened. Should have happened on season 9 day 1 launch. This is something that I talked about when the patch notes got leaked, like way before season 9. I was like, hey, I hope they don't forget all these non-damage sources. I don't know if they did it. I don't think they actually forgot. They just chose to not buff them. Just I guess just to kind of see how things kind of shook out. Like maybe they were thinking that like now it's gonna be so easy to hit Gracie's, we don't need to bring Carnage up to speed. But like this and like there's a lot of non-aim damage sources that are slowly trickling up. And this is one of the ones.
Well, it's funny because like didn't Rampage go up last patch on season? Was it season 9 or was it the mid-season patch? But Rampage went up, but they're just like, well, wait, we'll just chill on Carnage for now. Like they just, like you said, they're kind of just like slowly increasing the damage of different things.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe. My conspiracy theory is that it also just allows them to space out what could have been one patch notes over a longer period of time and have like more consistent changes. It's like, like, oh
Yeah, don't do it all too soon, guys. We'll have nothing in season 10.
It's like you're doing the house chores. Your mom's got a list of things that you do, and you're like, oh well, I'm gonna kind of fold my laundry for an hour, then I'm gonna scrub the bathroom. Look, mom, I'm still busy. See, look at all the things.
yeah, look, I did something. Maybe that's a mean interpretation, but that's again, maybe that's what maybe they just didn't think they needed changes. Reinhardt, all right, Flats, this one's on you. Earth Shatter knockdown duration increased from 2.75 to 3, and the shockwave range increased from 2025. Reinhardt's back, am I right?
Honestly, really good changes. Unfortunately, Caesar still exists, so like, oh well, that's tough, dude. But I mean, like, honestly, it's actually really nice. Not game breaking, which is hilarious because there hasn't been 3-second shatters since like season 18 of Overwatch 1 or some shit. But yeah, honestly, good change. Like that one.
Nice. Yeah, we'll see. I can sense the Orisa sadness in your voice, but yeah, that's nice for the Reinhardt mains out there. Sigma, his experimental barrier movement speed increased from 16.5 to 20 meters per second. And the developer comments, this change will allow Sigma's ability to protect allies that are further away from him, or will improve his ability to do so.
It's actually the opposite, though. I love that I see changes like this, and it's like they always they phrase things in terms of like helping your teammates, but it's like the complete opposite. Like this is a good change. This is a good quality of life change in the Overwatch 2 environment. So like it allows Sigma to like be quicker with like shutting off or shutting down off angles or whatever. But again, it's because you're stopping enemies from shooting. You're not like gonna be like, oh, my Mercy in the backline, I'm gonna throw a shield on her. It's gonna be more like, hey, that would have peaked on that angle that I didn't see. I'm gonna get my shield on her a little bit faster. So I think it's like a small change, but I think it's fine.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I will say like I wouldn't think to buff Sigma's shield speed. Like if I was thinking of how to tweak Sigma, it wouldn't be something that would come to my mind. So it's interesting that they went there. And I'd be curious to hear what they're like.
It feels like another quality of life change, right? Like I know it's actually a buff, but it feels closer towards the quality of life's part than the buff part.
I agree.
So.
And like I said, as long as they do changes like that like make Sigma feel better and some awkward, like if the map is really broad and wide and like trying to do, I think it's fine change.
Nice. Okay, and now here's one we can dwell on. So Wrecking Ball, developer comments. The general goals here are to add a direct way for Wrecking Ball to support his allies aside from purely enemy team disruption, make the hero more approachable while also adding more avenues for skill expression, and improve quality of life around the grapple. So there's 3 parts of this change. Grappling Claw. Holding the jump input while the grappling claw is attached to terrain to retract it, pulling yourself towards the anchor point. So basically we can call this Spider-Man Wrecking Ball, where you can kind of zip and control it a little bit more precisely, or actually at all. Now has a 1-second cooldown if Wrecking Ball never reaches ramming speed before cancelling the ability. Interrupting him with hack, hinder, and stun still triggers the full cooldown. And the maximum duration timer no longer triggers until he reaches ramming speed. So a whole host of changes to the claw. Then there's the adaptive shield, which can now be reactivated to redistribute up to 300 overhealth to nearby allies, capping at 75 per person. Enemy and ally detection radius increased from 10 to 13 meters, and his mines have their health increased from 50 to 60. So, who wants to go in first on Wrecking Ball?
I got a reaction here. Look at this. What do you guys think of this? What do you guys think of this?
Fixed.
So I can't wait.
Closed caption.
Fixie? I can't quite see it.
Closed caption. AVRL puts on a.
Yeah, come on.
An image of
There
fixed.
it is. There it is.
That content looks really good. I
don't know. Whose thumbnail's that?
Definitely children these days play with Rubik's Cubes. 100% they still play with Rubik's Cubes.
For sure. Hip with the kids, as you can tell. Definitely not 30 years old. Yeah, I don't know. I think the minefield and the adaptive shield stuff is fine. I know there was like a lot of controversy around the adaptive shield, actually on both sides of the spectrum. I think that like where it's at now is actually like pretty good. Like I think the fact that we're like not really sure about the adaptive shields is actually a good sign because I would rather AoE sustain abilities to be on the weaker side and or niche side, at least at the start. Because if this adaptive shields is like really good immediately, I think we'd have a lot of balance problems almost instantly. I'd rather it be okay. I'm not really finding a situation where it's super useful. It's pretty niche. I've used it like twice in like the past 2 games. Good, because I think the alternative is a big problem. If it adds value, if it gives dynamics 1 fight out of 10, it's free value. It's free real estate. It doesn't hurt the ball at all. So I think just like maybe like let it cook, see what happens, and then adjust it as it need to be. But again, I was more concerned about the opposite being true, where it's like a cool idea, but it's just going to be absolutely broken. I'd rather it be where it is right now. And I think the same thing I think goes for the minefield as well. Like obviously, just Doomfist Slam doesn't immediately clear it, or although it's gonna be weird to Earth Shatter mines and doesn't break it anymore. That's gonna be odd. Not that you do that normally, but it is gonna be odd.
Yeah, it'll definitely have
Now the
some of these.
grappling claw. Sorry, go ahead. The grappling
No, you
claw.
go.
I'm very disappointed with the grappling claw. I got baited so hard. I was like, guys, look, if you get CC'd when you grapple before you fireball, you're gonna get your grappling claw right back again. So they can't chain CC you. And then they specifically go, oh, but if you CC, it goes back to full. I'm like, so close. I understand like that would have been such a major buff the ball, but like my problem with ball has always been the guy has like a literal unlimited amount of HP. Unless he gets chain CC'd, then you might as well just be a mercy. Like he just dies instantly. And we've like this is like one of those changes that like made me very disappointed because it would be so easy to like actually implement the way that they changed it, but include the CC window and then just say, hey, we reduced 50 of Wrecking Ball's or HP and converted 50 of his armor into HP, or just reduced or something like that to reduce his overall survivability, but give him that counterplay versus CC. This is what tanks needed, and they missed a huge opportunity. They're even aware that that was an opportunity, and they chose to specifically not do it. So that like Wrecking Ball's really strong, like way stronger now, right? Like all these little tweaks. But if you play an unfriendly Wrecking Ball comp, it feels almost exactly the same. So it's like, what's the point? That's like that drives me nuts. Like such a missed opportunity.
Maybe the background is a little bit too premature then, AVRL. If this is not the hit for Wrecking Ball that we were hoping for.
Oh, this is meant to be a triggering background. Is what it meant to be.
Okay,
So
okay.
anyone that joins the podcast an hour later from now, where this context is not explained, is going to find this to be very interesting. So
True.
I'll let Flats go on this unless he doesn't have much to go, and then I can say something. But
I mean, the ball changes. I was worried too about the shields. The first thing I thought of was like Junker Queen originally, with like the shout running in type of a deal. Luckily, it's not like that at all. It doesn't seem like that useful, and it's very niche, which is probably better long term. And you know, if it ends up being something that needs some adjustments, sure, like give people time to learn how to use it, because like it could end up still being useful, just more niche. But yeah, you nailed it though. It's the same old. Where yeah, ball is much stronger now, but if they go the unfriendly ball comps, and that happens with almost all tanks at this point that are not named Orisa or whatever the flavor of the month stand there and don't die tank is, you just get smoked, and it's like, dude, that's fucking ass. So yeah, I'm not a ball player. I'm not great at ball. I haven't really played ball since like Overwatch 1. So I don't have like a whole ton of thoughts on like how good it is. I kind of leave that to people that are much better at ball than me. But yeah, I mean, kind of sucks, but I wonder if that's just the new reality, you know?
Mm.
The
Yeah, so-
retractor's good though. Heard a lot of good things about the retract. Not just for setting up, but I don't know if you guys have seen the clips of like people will use the grapple and then retract as they're swinging, so it like changes the arc so they can like access different swing spots. It's cool. It's really, really cool. So I think that was a really good. There's a lot of good changes with the ball. It's just I'm just more mad at like, dude, you guys knew that this could be used this way and purposely didn't go that direction. That always annoys me.
it's just like, yeah, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing that it didn't change much. Like, thankfully, it didn't make ball giga broken, because I think it'd be, I don't know, I think ball meta in Overwatch 2, I don't know if we've ever actually truly had a ball meta. I don't think we have, but I'm trying to imagine what it would be like in
It's like
Overwatch 2, and I just don't think it'd be that good. Like, it's still a hero that I feel like is severely left behind in terms of the design shifting over from 6v6 to 5v5, so Sam can have that one. Yeah, this is one of those. This is one of the heroes that genuinely, like, Ball seems like a hero that just like hasn't been ported over very well as a solo tank. So it seems problematic, and it seems like also maybe the devs are still lagging behind a bit in terms of figuring out what to do about this hero to truly make it impactful. You can start to see that. Okay, the claw side, the minefield health side, those are all great changes. Like those don't seem scary. Those seem like good changes for the ball. And this does seem like this entire patch generally, as we discussed, seems more like a majority quality of the life change for a decent number of these heroes. And the claw change, although it is, I guess, above, seems again more geared towards the quality of life side. It's the shield that's like the main talking point, right? Because the shield is now it's trying to be more of a team based ability, but then you have the fact that the way the hero plays is kind of, you know, it's the opposite of what the ability wants to do, because you're trying to use it as an escape tool. You kind of want to use the shield selfishly to live. Like, you got to slam into the other enemy team. You're thick into it. You need a shield to live. And what opportunity are you really giving it to your teammates? Like, it seems actually pretty rare. And beyond that, your whole team kind of needs to be playing dive, and even then, you're like, what, you're giving your tracer, maybe your Genji some shields. It's like very different to something like a Jungle Queen shout, or even the Malga cardiac overdrive. You're playing more of a brawl comp, and you're more inclined to group up as a team. In a ball comp, that's just not really happening. I would actually prefer a change where, and I've said this publicly before in terms of what I like to see in ball, but you know, he needs something else like um like a speed lane behind him as he goes into fireball, right? Something where it incentivizes the team to play with the ball in the way that the ball wants to play. Because I think one of the main issues with ball is that you do have to pick around this hero, and ball does kind of dictate the way your team ends up playing the game as the solo tank on the team. So you have to kind of, unless you want to change that entirely and change the identity of ball entirely, you need to sort of incentivize your teammates to either pick around or play around the playstyle of the ball, which is to say, like, okay, this is how we play with the ball. Ball's going to go in. Maybe as he, unless he's flanking, but if he's going to go in from the front or something like that, he can create like a, I don't know if you guys have played League of Legends, SB, I know you have recently, like a Kled speed lane behind you. Doesn't have to be fast. It could even just be like very small, like 10%, maybe less. The fact that it exists at all means the average player is like, oh, look, this is like a buff. This is something I can use. They're incentivized to follow the ball in and maybe play with the ball, do something like that. Because right now, I think part of the issue with ball is, you know, I think the majority of the player base don't know how to play with this hero on their team, because unless it's a very slow tank that you can move with, move behind Ryan Shield, move behind bigger Rissa Gold, doesn't die hero, you know, Sigma, all these other heroes are like easy to play with because they're just frontline. But Ball, super different hero, and the general player base has no idea how to play with this on their team.
The psychology of tank is visible uptime, right? And that's something that Ball struggles with a lot, because the only compositions where you can have consistent visible uptime are compositions without CC. Otherwise, you have to play really heavily into downtime, baiting attention, waiting for resources, soft engages, and that can be really difficult to play with, especially in lower rings. So to me, that kind of like, I don't think it's all about counterplay with crowd control by any means, but I do think that like when you talk about what does Ball need in terms of balanced things, new shiny tools, counterplay, whatever, it needs to lean into more visible counterplay. I think that without destroying Ball's design, I think having a solo-oriented tank is okay. Like, I don't think that's ever going to change about Ball, but I think whenever we talk about, like, again, what does Ball need? What is going to allow him to have more visible, consistent uptime? And I think that's going to lean more into, like, him being able to go in consistently without being like, oh, I haven't baited the 94 different cooldowns that I have to wait before I hard engage. And that's not just hard for the Ball. That's hard to play with a Ball, like, because even the idea of like, oh, I went in and I baited all their CDs, get you guys push right now. I'm busy
fire.
like
Got
getting
the
a med
Rubik's
kit. I'll
Cube
take
and
like
the
30
Thanos
seconds
in
to
the
recover from that
background. Love to see
traumatizing
it,
experience.
Lamau.
Like, that's hard to play around. Whereas like these tanks like Orisa and Zarya, even a Winston, right? There's a lot more consistent uptime, and there's certainly more visible uptime with those tanks. Like you can know when like a Winston, when he's diving, it's like it's a big fat bubble, you know, like you can see like what's going on, right? So I think that's just one of the difficulties with Ball, I think.
Also, the Winston dives from the front line typically, and it's like not on a hard flank. I think a lot of people like ball just disappears. Ball, maybe a ball does dive in, slam shield, and then it just rolls away. You're just like, okay, where did the ball go? We don't know where our tank is. So in terms of the visibility, I think that's a good point. Like your team, I'm talking about from the average player's POV. The team just has no idea what this ball is doing. It just seems like this ball's AFK playing like a tracer, right? And having that on your tank means that people are very confused. I think that type of tank design could work, but in a game where like people don't typically calm, like in your average quick play game or your middle rank game, I don't know if your ball is hard calming on the mic or if people are even in that chat. It's not like the ball saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this and I'm about to slam in here. You know, please be there and dive with me." Like that's just not happening. So what people are seeing is the ball's disappeared. We don't have a tank. He's still alive somewhere. We don't know where. That's it. That's what they see.
I think there is a problem that's universal in games, is that anytime there's a character who plays any sort of off strategy will always face this treatment. Like I think even from my experiences playing like Valorant or Dota and League, if you ever try to do something that isn't let's 5-man run it down main, people get upset, right? Like if you're just like, if you take like the MOBA example, if you're kind of like, I'm gonna split push a different lane, right? Or even in a Valorant example, you're like, I'm gonna go the other point just to draw. I know we're attacking A, guys. I know we want to plant on A, but I'm gonna go B so that they have to put some threat on B, and they think that it could be B. But people will be mad. They'll be like, no, we're going A. Why aren't you here? Why you're fucking trolling because you're not here with us right now? And I think that same applies to tanks like Wrecking Ball, where it's like, or I've noticed this even if I'm on an ult account or something, and I'm like off angling a little bit, right? Like if I'm just like not even just coming down. I mean, I'm just like I'm standing a little bit here. They'll be like, where's our tank? I don't know. He's fucking doing something why he won't come down main with us. So that is like, I don't know if that's a solvable problem. Like I think that's just a problem, and to some extent we can't help that people who are not the best at the game will not understand every strategy that's a viable strategy. But I do think this is a problem the Blizzard have struggled with about this whole making a tank useful for their team, because we saw this with Roadhog too. We saw them say, oh, we want Roadhog to do something for his team, and the end result was like a pig pen that like slowed people. Like we ended up in a net nothing on that one. So I don't know if they will solve this problem, but I'm curious, Flats, if you kind of feel like there's anything, is this like something that just has to be let go? Like we just have to like understand that people will always F this up, or is there some way to make ball more parsable for a normal player?
I know you were back at square one with Hog, because like we're kind of back with one shot
Yeah.
again. Like I feel like all the Hog players figured out how to one shot again, and plus it was that buff with like the chain hook pulling a little bit closer, so it's a bit easier now. And it's like, oh shit, not really much changed, huh? And I have this meta prediction, at least for ranked, that like once Orisa probably gets sent off to the farm for a little while because people get sick of her, a Hog's just gonna come back and it's gonna be the same shit all over again. And oh man, I'm dreading it. But I don't think it is. I don't think it is fixable, because you have such a staunch difference between your Rhine, Winston, actually in a lot of ways because the big fat bubble, Queen kind of, Mauga kinda, Zarya, Orisa, like these like stand there tanks that everyone's looking at, because and we learned this with the start of Overwatch 2, where support players were still like hard coded to just sit there and stand there and shoot the tank in the ass the entire game. But if your tank's not there, you can't shoot them in the ass. So you feel like you're not playing the game either. So you're like, oh, I can't play the game because my tank's not here, so it's their fault. And meanwhile, that's not actually how it goes. And Hog even is a good example, because if we watched some OWCS this weekend, it was awesome watching the Nightmare team with the Hog comps, and how they're all just standing on different angles and not moving. And it just it felt like watching a ranked game almost, where the Hog just stands there and does the stupid Hog shit and doesn't die for a while. I know everyone's like, why is that Hog still alive? And it's you have to be extremely talented to pull that off, and you got to give it credit. But in your metal ranks, if you try to stand there, you have to be hitting all your hooks all the time to have that impact. Unless you're hitting all those hooks and you're doing all those things, not only are you not having as much impact, but your teammates are probably getting even madder at you too, because you're not standing there with a shield. And every once in a while, you still see that probably old Overwatch 1 player comes in my chat or whatever and is like, like, oh, my friends get mad, like I don't play Rhine or a shield tank, and they always say like we need a shield, and I'm like, dude, need a shield? Like, what the are you in 2018? Like, where the fuck are you? You know, so I don't know. I don't know if that's something that at least you can fix with like a lot of like the more off meta quote unquote stuff. Maybe Doomfist is another good example where if you play against really good Doomfists, like if you see people always say like, oh, either Doomfist is terrible or he's broken, depending on who you ask. And it's just, do they remember getting shit stomped by a Doomfist, or do they remember having a bad Doomfist on their team? And it's like typically a Doomfist on your team is going to feast or famine. If they know how to use their cooldowns correctly, they're going in, engaging properly, are they securing kills? But if they also swap to like a hard counter Doom comp, and their Doom doesn't swap, and you don't swap to something to like help them a little bit too, obviously the guy's gonna suck. You know what I mean? Like that's just natural. Hell, I mean, do you remember that one time? It's not totally the same. You remember that time Sam messaged like a month or two ago and it was like he got forced off Rhine and Plat, and it's like, oh man, dude, that's fucking hilarious. And I'm sure you know on a character like Doom, which is a lot harder, you're getting counterpicked like crazy if you don't have the support. Yeah, you're not going to perform well. So like that's a psychological thing. And also, you know, some of those tanks were designed in a different game, and you know that's okay. But it's also really tough to sit there and go, do characters like Winston or Queen or Zarya even and like that where they have both killing power or space creating or engagement power. Also, are they the same? Like you know, like they all do a combination of those things, while a tank like Ball or Hog, like they literally are either just a fat DPS or really high survivability CC simulator, but they don't have a front line. You know what I mean? So I think the answer is no, unfortunately. Long-winded answer on that one being no, but yeah, I kind of feel bad for it, but I don't see a way to fix it without completely changing their identity.
I'm sure
I don't
Spilo
even think
has
it's.
Oh, go ahead, AVRL.
It's not even like the psychological problem is the beginning, but I think it goes beyond to the area where like you also then need to pick the right heroes around. I think both Hog, but especially Ball. Like if you're not playing some sort of dive comp, or at minimum something that can like poke where the ball slams and maybe someone gets popped up and then you have an Ash or like you know something hit scan that can take advantage of that and get those kills. If you're not playing the right heroes around the ball, it does feel like a weird game, like exactly what Flight said. Like you're support there, like you're used to just pumping heals into a Rhino or Orisa, and suddenly there's this ball, and you don't know how to play with this ball because this ball is just like you know. Sorry, my camera's frozen. Let me just fix that real
Yeah,
quick.
I was just like,
This ball is just like
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
that's how we
like
do
the
it.
nipple zoom
I'm
or
doing
something.
I'm doing all sorts of tricks on camera today. I'm a magician on the cam.
Nice.
Yeah, like you don't know. People don't know how to play with the ball in terms of the play style, but also like if you don't have the right characters with it, it's just weird. Like you don't know what to do now. Like what is your tank? You're like, oh, is one of our DPS the tank now? Like, do we have a Reaper? Like, we don't have a tank. It feels like you don't have a tank because you haven't picked the right heroes. Like, we're not hard diving. You could be playing like more of a brawl style setup just by accident because those are the heroes your team happened to pick, and then you have a ball in your team. Now the ball's kind of like dictating. It's like, well, if you don't pick the right heroes around the ball, this team just doesn't make sense anymore. And heroes like ball kind of force your team in that situation. So maybe you do know how to play the game. Maybe you do, but you just don't want to play those heroes like, oh, we have a ball on team. Okay, great. Now I have to pick X or Y or Z hero for this ball. Otherwise, our team's just going to suck because this ball is now forced the comp to be this way. So there's that problem as well.
Yeah, I doubt there's a way to force people to like match their tanks comp, but I think that would be the best solution in a sense, is like somehow to get enough social pressure, because clearly the community has established a precedent where they're like, the way to win Overwatch is to counterpick the enemy tank, and people love doing that. Like, rampantly will do that. And I found that everyone has an opinion on what tank you should swap to, but very rarely do they swap themselves. So I wonder if we could create social pressure to bully, like, okay, what's gonna happen now, guys? If you don't swap to match your tank, you're tossing. That's the thing now. Like, if you don't pick the comp to match, like if they're running dive, you go dive. They're running poke, you go poke. You go brawl, you go brawl. You're the problem. You're the idiot. Because like you know, we've all put this pressure on the tank players to be like, you should swap when you're hard countered. But everyone just wants to pick the like, I'll just pick whatever the fuck AFK. I'll stand and
You
shoot
know what?
hero.
You can't make people do that. And the reason why is because people feel like it's 4 of us swapping for one guy. The one guy should just swap for the 4 of us.
Yes,
right?
I know.
It's a
I know.
numbers problem. So that's why it'll never happen.
And even better, if you're the tank player, you're playing 2 games at once. You're playing the counter swap game versus them and their tank, while also playing the counter swap game for your teammates. That's insane.
Yes, it was more of a wishful thinking on my part, but I think it's like it is unfortunate. Spilo, do you have any thoughts on just the whole? Because we're talking at the moment more of like a philosophical problem, aren't we? And you're usually one to conjure up solutions about what happens when this kind of alternate playstyle exists. And you said you've kind of talked about visible uptime, but is there a wider philosophical thing we can do?
I mean, I think there's just so many like ways to approach it. I think that you have to like start somewhere. I think a lot of it has to do with like ignoring the whole 5v5 or 6v6 thing. Like, what is the psychology of a tank, and how can we make that process better? Like, how can we shift the tank from being the forefront of the focus over and over and over again? Because coincidentally, what I talk about in this video, I don't know if I'm pointing up at AVRL here, but hopefully I am, and is that focusing tank is not always the best way to win, but it's the way that feels the most directly useful. And that's part of the psychology of Overwatch. Even going back to 6v6, it's like just the psychology of like what a tank does by getting in your face and getting your attention. It doesn't matter what tank you're playing, brawl tank or not. It is the forefront of your attention. But the analogy I always say is that like when a Winston dives your backline and the Widowmaker is looking at you, are you worried about the Widowmaker? Are you worried about the Winston? And if you ask, if you not even ask, but if you look at the reaction of like 90% of players up until like the higher ranks, they're not thinking about Widowmaker. They're thinking about the Winston, right? Even though the Widowmaker is the more deadly thing. And that's just the psychology of tank. It's the whole proximity. Proximity equals threat. And so to me, it's like, I think that that's something that like, I think you have to start with that. I think you have to start with giving tanks some form of counterplay. Giving them more active survivability instead of raw survivability through HP and shields and things like finding ways to like, I can outplay CC, I can outplay burst damage, I can mitigate this, right? That's why tanks like Zarya, Orisa, maybe not Zarya, but like Orisa and Sigma feel so good. It's because that they have a million tools to deal with all the things that tanks suffer with. And then once you address that, what can we do for tanks like, I don't know, like Malga? Why does everybody shoot Malga? Because he's so freaking juicy, man. He's like a pork loin. You just want to shoot him and shoot him and shoot him. Doesn't matter if he's popping cardiac. It doesn't matter if he's nano boosted. He's just this massive hunk of muscle, right? It's like seeing flats at land. The guy's you just want to squeeze his arms, and kind of got off on a tangent there, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Like, for
I really feel.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, back to the Uprising Academy days. But yeah. Anyway, long story short, it's like you just want to shoot it, right? Like, I mean, how many times have you guys shot a hog who's full HP vaping? Like I know I have, right? It's just because it feels good, and so I think you have to start with that. I think that definitely 5v5 exacerbated that issue because you split up the attention from 2 tanks onto 1. I think everybody realizes that, but I also think that whether it's 5v5 or whether that's 6v6, we really do have to address that issue. Like, we have to address, like, why are tanks so attractive to shoot all the time, even when it's not good, even when it costs you games, even when dumping every single resource into the enemy Roadhog and he lives anyway. Meanwhile, you're dying to the Tracer and the Moira's living and the Mercy's on 1 HP and nobody ever shoots her. Like, that is a psychological problem that I think that you have to address. And we've come up with solutions. Again, in this video, we talk about like hitbox sizes. We talked about sound effects. I think I talked about that in a tweet. I responded with flats. I think we talk about like good. Even just like the direct counterplay. Like, it makes it less attractive. For example, it's less attractive to shoot a wrecking ball than it is a lot of the other dive tanks when he's moving, because he's a little bit harder to shoot, whereas a Roadhog is a lot easier to shoot. So even just like the mobility and how the hitboxes work and things like that, or being able to, like, a Zarya bubble is not as attractive to shoot as a Roadhog. Why? It doesn't sound as good, and it means I'm helping the Zarya. So there's like a lot of little things like that. I think a lot of people come in and they just want to be like, oh, we just need to buff the tank passive, or oh, we just need to nerf Orisa and like buff Ryan, and we need to we just need to go back to 6v6. Like, it's just like this. Everyone's got their own magical pill to look at, but I think the problems with tank have been with us for what, 6 years, right? Like, it's always been a problem. And I think people say like, oh, do you just want like tanks just to be fat DPS? Yes, but also no. You know what I'm saying? Like, what to me, the difference between tank and DPS is that a tank is a little leans into the psychology of like getting in your face and does so for longer. That's my definition of a tank. A tank is a DPS that keeps your attention for longer and does so up close. A tank does not protect your team. The word tank doesn't even mean that. Like, what does a tank in a real world do, right? It doesn't. You don't hide behind a tank. It's big, it's bulky, it's threatening. And I think that that's how do we balance that with game
People
balance?
hide
Like,
inside the tank in real life.
right, exactly. But like for me, the whole purpose of like tank should be something that like we want to lean into the psychology of tanking a little bit because that's what makes tank players tanks. That's what makes them unique. But also we don't. I think people have this idea that tank should just be this like big slab of meat shield or this protector, and that's not true at all. I think okay. So here's one more thing. I'm going on for a little bit. One more thing. The whole point of making tank lean less into the psychological attractiveness value, right? Like think about like a Sigma, right? Compare Sigma to Roadhog. When you make tanks like Sigma, a little bit slimmer, a little bit less HP, a little bit more reactive, proactive counterplay, things like that. What you do is you actually make the tank less effective as a distraction standpoint. You actually make them less effective at baiting attention. But by doing that, you allow the tank to actually do more things. So what's funny is that like tank is actually a really, really impactful role right now. Like arguably the most impactful role. It doesn't feel like it, and also the impact is not very fun. So what you'd be doing is you would be actually nerfing the actual effective output of tank, but buffing the feel of impact, if that makes sense. That's the way I want to look at it. Because right now, if you go Winston and you're making 5 people on the enemy team counter swap and they're all focusing you down, you hate your life, but your team may win the fight. But that doesn't mean I'm having fun. And so, like, I think that's my word vomit on that topic.
I got a solution, guys. Let's just say on a previous episode of Group
Are
Up,
you breaking the glass again, Avril? Are you breaking the glass again?
yeah, there was a certain construction tool I talked about. Something where you just destroy everything. Something about killing all tanks and just
I
like
just
having
don't
no
think it's
tanks
going
in
to
the game.
happen,
I don't
though.
know.
I think that
know
would be
it's
the
not
more
gonna-
balanced approach. I think that'd be the more
You're right.
balanced approach.
It's not going to happen, but I wish it would. But it's not going to happen. You're correct.
I think it'd be the more
Blizz
balanced.
Do you want
won't
to?
it.
Do you
They
want
won't
to,
do it.
Avril?
agree.
Avril, for anyone who maybe didn't listen to the previous version where you talked about it, do you want to quickly summarize what you're referring to?
Sure, I can summarize it, but I will say I don't. People probably won't do this. You should though. I will implore people to go back to that episode. I can't remember which one it was. Did we?
It's just the
I'm sure
last
you've
time
done
Avril was
episodes since
on.
then.
It's just the last time that Avril was on.
Whatever the last time I was on was, where essentially this point is long and it does need to be like fully fleshed out. Otherwise, I sound like a crazy person. But my point was that tanks are the biggest outliers in the game by far, which is the coldest take out there. I think everyone agrees with that. And the way that I see tanks being, if you actually want this role to be properly balanced, you have to homogenize this role to the point where it's really just, you know, you really just don't have the role anymore. Tank just doesn't really exist in the way it does anymore. You entirely reduce it down to slightly more HP than DPSs. Hitboxes aren't that big anymore. They really are just bigger DPSs. Like not even like Hog. I'm not even talking like Zarya. I'm talking like even more homogenized down to DPS than that. And really what I'm trying to get, it sounds crazy when I say it like this again. You need to watch the previous episode to hear the full explanation and not this like tiny excerpt, because I sound like an insane person for saying this. You're like, why would I suggest this? This sounds horrible. There's a much longer, nuanced explanation that I'm not going to get in under 30 seconds in this current discussion. So you do have to go back. But yeah, the problem comes in that, like, you know, tank is just way too much of an outlier, and you have to bring it within line of how the other heroes in the game exist if you actually want this role to be balanced. Otherwise, this role will always be, in my opinion, an issue where it does feel unbalanced. You feel like you're either absolute server admin, giga buff, 1000 HP, unbelievable damage, just walking around and like punching everyone, and everyone just insta dies, or you just get bullied and you're having the worst time. You can't do anything. It feels like the worst role in the game. You know, you have all the impact but none of the impact. You get all the blame. It doesn't feel good. Like I don't know if there's a good equilibrium, but I do know that if tank didn't exist, we wouldn't have this problem. It does sound crazy, so please go back and watch the previous video.
I have to interject super fast. Super, like the whole concept of a tank in a first-person shooter game is just outrageous. Like, how do you do
Correct.
that when people can choose who to shoot? Well, the way you have to do it is you have to have something that looks like, again, you have to use psychology. Like, you have to make people want to shoot you. You have to make people, hey, look at me, I'm gonna get you, right? And then people look at you, and then your DPS and supports can do what they want to do. But then the problem with that is then the tank goes, wait, they're looking at me. Ow. So like it's like there's just like no real way to like completely solve that. I think like that the whole purpose of the tank is to provide windows of timing where people are looking at you. But like I think right now we're kind of with the whole solo tank thing, we're too far on the opposite extreme where like the tank is all anybody is ever looking at. There's not two tanks, it's just one big tank and everybody's looking at it. And I think that that's when it starts to go from like, I think that's the word, like we have to have the slider here, right? There's never ever going to be a solution to this problem. Tank will always be a weird outlier. But if it's baiting too much attention, too good at doing its job, it's not fun.
I got one last thing to add, so that I don't just not just Spilo and I taking over the podcast. I got one last thing, and it's basically just that I think the delta in the TTK for tanks is huge as well, like way bigger than any other role. Where it feels like, okay, sometimes I'm like actual server admin, I never die. I'm getting double pocketed. I'm shields up, or I'm like Arista Gold. I never die. Like I'm actually invincible. And other times it's like, dude, I'm getting hard melted. All 5 on the enemy team are looking at me, all shooting me at the same time. Maybe my supports, they're focused on other things because I got a DPS 2 doing some stuff, and I'm not actually getting double pocketed. Maybe the other team's just extremely good, or maybe I'm up against a Smurf. Whatever the case is, if the other team is hitting shots, maybe you're making a mistake and your supports aren't great, you're getting melted. So there's a giant delta between I ain't dying like ever to I'm getting rolled every fight. I have 500, 600, 800 HP, whatever it is, and it feels like I have 100 HP and I have no HP at all. I feel like paper. You giant hitbox, big tank, juicy to shoot, like Spilo says, and you just get destroyed. I think that delta in the TTK feels really bad because every tank player's felt both sides. That you felt the time when you've never died, but you've also felt the time when you have died super quickly, and that feels awful. Whereas at least for the other roles, with 250 HP, it's like the delta between like how fast you die and how slow you die, it's like way more standardized. And so I don't know, I think it feels less bad to die on other roles. It feels way worse to die on tank for other reasons also, but for that reason specifically as well.
Yeah, I think beautiful points made by both Spilo and Avril. So I don't mind you taking over the podcast for a little bit. I will take it over to Flats though. Flats, do you have any sort of thoughts on any of those? A lot of big picture stuff brought up there, but anything that stuck out to you?
I had a few things, but honestly, I kind of got lost because it just went so long.
My bad.
No, you're fine. I wanted to kind of hear you out because I think you're actually right in a lot of ways, and especially on that last point of impact versus feeling impact, right? Because we have this running joke, me and Ema, where sometimes in ranked when you play tank, we play prop hunt, which is like, you just hide in a corner and don't move and pretend they didn't see you. Because like that's one of those games where everyone's shooting at you and you're like, okay, I'm dying too much, so I'm just gonna walk into the fight, walk in, like pull spinning spear or shout in, and then like hit one ability and then run to a corner and don't fucking move. Don't go anywhere. Like just wait till your cooldowns come back. Don't try to make a play. Don't do anything stupid. Don't try to have an impact. Wait. But then, as the fight goes on and you like nobody found you, you're like, oh, is it safe? And you can pop back out and you have your cooldowns back. Then like you kill everybody and you're like, oh my god, I'm a god. But it's so like both ends, it swings back and forth so fast and so widely. The other two roles are not even close. And it's like, I think it has to be said, it's insanity. Like you have to be somewhat insane to queue up tank every day. Like you have to actually have an issue or two that like you like the pain or something, because otherwise, like if you're a casual gamer who plays this game, why the fuck would you want to play that role? And we had Seagull come back this week, and because the wide group thing was fucked, we ended up finding a nice sweet spot narrow group, and he had to play tank for us. He played 3 games of tank. And I'm not joking. On game 3, he would like you could hear it in his voice how upset he was. Like he was legitimately upset. He was like, "Guys, I can't do this. Like, I'm gonna get off. Like, I'm literally gonna like stop stream. I'm not playing anymore. Like, I'll play support. I'll play anything else. Like, please." And we're like, okay. Like, it's not like Seagull doesn't play tank. He played D.Va in like Overwatch League, right? Like, he knows what he's doing. He was so mentally like falling apart. Like, he just couldn't do it anymore. And it's like there's a real thing behind that, you know. And it's like, yeah, you know, you have those games of tank, or you play against a tank, right? And I think that's what people resonate with. I think most people remember playing against that tank that runs over their entire team, right? And they're like, holy shit, like, you know, Orissa's so good, or that Winston's so good, like this season, like I got destroyed by this Winston player. And it's like, yeah, and that was probably the first game that guys had of like that in like 4 games. You know, like it doesn't happen every game like that. Because if you have a game where it's like very even, like both tank players are good or bad, and they just stand there and like you can't do anything, you just like butt heads for hours, it feels like shit. It feels terrible. And like, you know, with the new DPS passive, sometimes like you feel like you're not getting healed back up, you know, because like supports are off making plays and whatnot, so it takes longer for you to heal up in a mid fight. So it's actually a lot better to like play slow and play around corners and then like wait for those like burst opportunities. But then you also do have those super high impact moments, and I kind of agree with you that like it really is the most impactful role again, and that's why like I also feel that the tank is pretty balanced, but it still feels terrible. Like that's not good. Like that's really bad, right? Like that's not a good sign. So I don't know. Yeah, I think there's a lot of psychological stuff, and I think even we can go back to Overwatch 1. Like remember when, you know, end of game meta, there was that Sigma Hog meta, where like Sigma would always off angle with somebody, and like your Hog was like your main tank, and it would stand there and everybody shoot the Hog. But your Sigma would like just be free half the time, and you know, there's probably a lot to be said with like, you know, easier to hit versus not easier to hit, and people don't shoot them as often. But at the same time, though, I don't know if, you know, people will still enjoy playing tank is in the state of a fat DPS. Because, you know, you already get the DPS player queues up tank, and then they just lock Zarya, Hog, whatever. And you can tell when you have a tank player or a DPS player playing tank. It's such a different experience. Like, they just play very differently, you know? And so I hear you guys, too, on the whole, it's insane to have a tank in an FPS, but, like, to say, like, tanks shouldn't exist, like, you would just kill Overwatch. Like, it wouldn't be what it is, right? Like, it would be a completely different game at that point. And I don't know if that's totally fair. I'm not saying I'm providing a better solution, and that might be a bit of a cop out. But it is kind of sad, where every game you feel like you are the reason why your team wins or loses, and it's mentally very draining. While also feeling like you don't get credits for doing very much. Like, you don't ever show up on the kill feed. You don't ever look like you're like doing a whole lot, unless like you're an Orisa versus a Hog player and you have 25,000 damage and they have 10k damage because you've been shooting the Hog for the last 9 minutes and nothing's been happening. Then it's like, oh wow, I have really high numbers. Like, everyone can see in the scoreboard, like you have your juiced up numbers. But it's like a thankless role that has the most impact, but also at the same time the least amount of impact, that also gets shot the most, that also doesn't feel like it has survivability, but also sometimes has like giga survivability. But then also, you know, like if you have, you know, that teammates that just are falling over constantly because they refuse to swap versus their tank, you know, like they have a Hog and they're fucking rolling, you've already done your diligence, you went Mauga, you went Orisa, whatever, but it's just not enough. Like, you need a little bit more. You need like a Hanzo, you need a Nana, you need something, and they just won't swap, but they're getting mad at you, and they're getting like, oh, what's going on? You're on the counter to their tank and you're still losing. And it's like, you start losing your mind a little bit and you start going a little crazy, and it's just, I don't know, dude. I don't have a good solution for it.
I have one. I have another
yeah.
solution. I've because I actually pretty much agree with Flats almost entirely here, because if you did delete tanks entirely, it wouldn't be Overwatch anymore. And that's why I, like Spilo said, like it's never going to be done. Devs will never go in that direction because it's such a nuclear option. So here's my alternate solution that's just as crazy in the opposite direction. Make everything tank, because then that way it will be balanced, right? If you have 0 DPS, maybe some supports,
You mean
and the
open
rest is
queue?
just tank. Yeah, no. Well, maybe, yeah, like it's all tank,
Oh
and then
no,
some DPS,
I can read the
permanent
YouTube
goats,
comments now.
and then but hey, that will solve. Because here's the problem: you cannot solve tank. Some people, I know Sam's gonna love it. Some people saying go back to 6v6. That doesn't even solve it either. Because now you should have like
It doesn't.
two of the same problem. You have two of the same problem. It's just like the issue is again the role is just such an outlier in terms of design. It's just so different in terms of design that it feels like it doesn't belong. And I don't actually see a real solution here because, as I've said, and I think Flights has maybe alluded to, either the tank feels giga busted, server admin, or it's just a punching bag. And I don't think there's maybe Blizzard believes there is an equilibrium. I don't see it. I need to see the proof of that
Can
because
I,
I genuinely don't
I
see
think
it.
there can be. I think it can. Without Flats, go ahead. Sorry.
the only thing I could truly think of, and the reason why I think this is because it would lean more towards like 2016 Overwatch when the game was just fucking the Wild West, is giga lean into what each role is. Like, I'm talking about like tank doesn't do a ton of damage, but is extremely tanky. Like not HP wise, but like survivability. Doesn't do a ton of damage, but like that way you're not as threatening to people, but you can get there, right? Like the analogy I always used to give with Ryan with like the devs is like, for so many seasons, they would like if you made a very simple game where there's like you're two people fighting in an open field, and it's like there are three classes. There's a melee class, a sniper class, and just a random rifle class or whatever. And you have them 1v1, and it's like the melee class always loses to the range characters, right? Because you can't get there. And then it's like the devs keep buffing the amount of damage the knife does, and it's like stop, like that doesn't make sense. And it's like at the same time though, like if you do that, it feels like you're not threatening. You can't like secure kills, but like maybe that's it. And it's like DPS become more of the glass cannony damaging roles. Maybe tanks become not as much damage because like there's already so much damage and burst in the game, and like tanks do a lot of damage. Like tanks consistently have the most damage in every game, and then supports are less hybrid DPS and more healing. And I don't know. That might be radical because like I don't know if we've ever tried that, but that's the only thing I could think of. Because then like people could think of it, you know what I mean? Like they understand like, oh, I'm playing damage, I'm here to do damage. I'm playing support, I'm here to heal. I'm playing tank, I'm here to absorb damage, not do much damage, right? But that would be also maybe boring. So I don't know.
Wouldn't tanks feel bad though? Because like you really just are a meat shield, and like you're so dependent on everybody else in your team to do things. You're like, I'm gonna go in and make space. Oh, I died because my team didn't do enough damage. Like I feel useless because my DPS has lost me the scam. They're not doing enough damage. You can feel that way now, but at least current tank. I think part of the reason why the devs want tanks to do damage because you feel impactful. Damage is like a very clear, obvious feedback of I am doing something in this game. Whereas just purely tanking and taking space, a high level lobby and high level play with an actual team with comms, that is actual real work. You can do very little damage, but if you're actually taking space, you're actually like doing things to make the gameplay of the other team difficult, and your team can take advantage of that. You are winning, but that feels less satisfying, and probably not at all obvious for the average player because you just don't feel like you're having any impact if you don't do damage on tank, right?
So
It's still useful. It's just it's not as obvious. That's the problem. Like you don't get that immediate reinforcement, so the lower rank players will never figure it out. I think like Flat suggestion, like I think on paper would technically be balanced. Like you could definitely work with that, and it would solve a lot of our issues. I just don't think that that's something that. But it's part of the reason, like the whole. We'd have to probably dig into like the whole free to play model and like why they did 5v5 in the first place, and it's probably why they won't do that because like they want to give that autonomy to like, oh, you can still carry on this role, or you can still pop off, or you still can secure kills. I think the thing that Flats brought up earlier, which I was talking about last week, somebody sent a video and I made me realize it's like tanking is the patient role. Tanking is the patient role. Like Flats was saying, there's situations where you just have to sit and you just have to wait. And I think that's probably one of the biggest problems with like the whole like CC and counterplay and survivability is if you look at like what tanks people want to play, they want to play Sigma. They want to play Orisa. They want to play Roadhog. And I realize why they want to do that is just because you just shoot and you just keep shooting. And you just keep shooting and you keep shooting and you keep shooting. And you may not be doing like the most impactful things, right? But those characters just don't have near as much downtime as so many of the other characters. So if you look at like an LH Cloudy playing Reinhardt, right? This guy's going to pin backline and then he's going to hold shield. 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 And then he's going to do something else. Winston's another great example. Like you literally cannot do anything without bubble in Overwatch 2. Like you literally, like you can't even alt fires, man. I was watching Hanbin on Winston in OWCS like a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to gouge my eyes out. The guy was using alt fire so much and losing like 300 HP every 2 seconds, right? Go back to Zarya DB, I beg. But like long story short is like you have so many of these tanks that like they have like such heavy uptime or such heavy downtime that it's not appealing to play that character unless, like you're like what Flat said, you're a tank player. If you're a tank player, you understand the downtime, you understand the self-sacrifice, you understand the patience, you understand the whole prop hunt approach to tank. If you're not a tank player, then you don't want to play prop hunt. You're there to just sit there and do damage and just press cooldowns and absorb damage and just shoot and shoot and shoot and not really doing anything impactful. And I think one of the problems that we have with Overwatch 2 is that we want to make tank feel good for the tank players, but we also want to make tank feel good for the non-tank players. And so while we look at Orisa and Roadhog, and I would not say that they're the pinnacle of tank design, I think there's lessons that we can learn about why people play them, right? And it's not just because they're easy to play, because you can have a bad Orisa and they'll still play Orisa. It's because it's the uptime, and it's the dopamine reward, right? And I think so many other tanks lack that because they just get blown up instantly, right? So I don't want invulnerability cooldowns. I don't want fortify. But like this whole going back to an actionable specific thing, this whole Wrecking Ball change. That's why that ticks me off so much, because you could actually have a Wrecking Ball player that can actually play into crowd control more, because if I get canceled, I can still do what I want to do. I can have higher and more uptime. That's why we need those changes. That's why that stuff needs to happen. Because if you don't have that happening, then people don't want to play Wrecking Ball, because the second go to Wrecking Ball, I cannot do anything, right? And I don't know. That's the stuff that like we have to change that. We have to allow tanks to still feel like tanks, to still have uniquely tank things, but we have way too much of a spectrum right now where it's like the Orisa just does constant 24/7 uptime while contributing not near enough. And then you have these tanks that actually do things, that actually tanky tanks, but at this miserable downtime, no CC counterplay, and it just feels awful. And we have to introduce that. Like we can't make tank the role where you're playing prop hunt the whole game or you're server admin. It can't happen. It just can't happen.
So many great points you guys have brought up. I don't think there's like an end point to this discussion in the sense it's not like I don't think even talking we're going to be like, oh, we've solved it, guys, here we go. I think all we can offer is lots of perspectives, so potential solutions, and point to a few things, and then it's Godspeed Blizzard, figure out a way to make it happen. To that end, I want to point out a few more things, and then we'll round out this topic with any more thoughts you guys have. One is we did try the tanks being very tanky in Overwatch 1 with a creator patch with Lemon Kiwi, with what she did when she got the reins of tank, and she made tank very untanky. Or very tanky but un-DPS-y, sorry, I should say. And the feedback was people didn't like it because they were like, oh, I can't kill anything. So there's a couple problems. First problem is they didn't actually give her the reins of every role. They only gave her the roles of one role. And so I think the experimental creator patch thing is a great idea. I've talked about this before. I think it's a great idea to allow Blizzard to experiment with different things while also passing the buck off to someone else. Because if you give like a creator or a group of creators the chance to do something radical like that, they can be like, I think Overwatch would be really good if you had very like tanky tanks that didn't kill stuff. And then if it's shit, you just go, wasn't me. It was just, you turn into Shaggy. You're like, you saw me on the counter? It wasn't me. So I think that's like, it's helpful, but that's where we failed. So the problem for a lot of these solutions is we've seen half measures of attempts at them, right? And I think that's what, I'm not going to go too much into the 6v6, 5v5 thing, but a lot of the 6v6 defenders say, we actually never got a proper shot at 6v6. I'd argue we've never really even gotten a proper shot at 5v5. We haven't actually changed enough of the game, I think, to even get a proper shot at 5v5, because as we keep talking about, there's so many of these left behind tanks that we make like these half changes to, like Wrecking Ball, like Roadhog, that have never really been designed for this game mode. So we have like, and so to the Lemon Kiwi example, we got a chance to see, well, what if tank was more tanky but didn't kill things? And people were like, we hate it, blah, 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 blah. But it was a half measure. But it's perhaps something to go off. And then the other wider POV that I want to bring into is that this is a universal problem again, that like no game has really been successfully able to convince people to play the tank role prolifically. Like almost never across any multiplayer game do people on par choose to play the role that absorbs a bunch of damage for their teammates? It's almost always a struggle. So to some core extent, what we're dealing with is just a universal problem that if tanks are to be in any what like the name implies, tanks, there will be less people who will play them. Now that could be something we learn to accept, right? This is kind of what we're talking about here. You could learn to accept this and say, okay, it will be not as popular, but let's make it fun for the people who like that. For the people who like being defenders of their team and space creators, let's make a role that's fun for them. Or you go the other end of the spectrum and you say, what AVRL is kind of suggesting is like, let's do away with them or severely, you know, shave them down and make a role that's applicable, like appealing to as broad a category of people as we can. But in that process, like there will always be a victim somewhere. And I think that's also how I would like to frame any discussions on like the tanking problem, is that there will always be a tanking problem. It's just choose your flavor. Choose your flavor of the tanking problem. Is it that tanks are too tanky, they mitigate too much, or just by the fact that they are tanky, they don't appeal to many people, or we end up somewhere around this where it's like maybe they're a bit too broad. They don't satisfy everyone's itch, but they're also the target focus and they are unrewarding and they're like unfulfilling as heroes to play. So I feel like there are things we can do to make any of these problems better. So I don't want to say that like this is not me saying there's no solution, there's nothing we should bother doing. There's definitely a lot of things, and you guys have eloquated a lot of really great things. But there will always be a tank for like whenever we do a podcast, no matter what Overwatch does, whether they go 6v6, 5v5, open queue, roll queue, 10v10, they add items, they do away with tanks, whatever they do, we'll be sat here being like, there's a tank problem, as long as tanks are somewhat of a different role to the other roles. But my other last thought would throw the hat in the ring, and this is the SVB bingo card. We still haven't addressed how easy it is to counter swap. And I still think that's like a hidden problem that exists, where the devs kind of talked a little bit about like we're investigating ways to make counter swapping more like less viable and more punishing, and then they kind of disappeared on that. Like they talked about like, oh, we're thinking about coins and a currency to swap, but then they kind of went to 15% ult charge and they left it. And I do think that's another mitigating factor that we can add, is that like at least if I'm Winston in the first fight and they lose and then they run back to spawn and 5-man counter me, I want to know that they at least cost them something, not like a free ass swap and like my hero's useless now. I'd like to know that like the whole they're all focusing me is costing them something more tangible than the intangible. Well, my team should have a theoretical advantage now because I've created lots of space and made an opportunity for them to pick X. I want them to know they fucking lost something. I don't care if it's a fictional currency.
But they don't
or
know that though. They're stupid. They don't know that. It's the same thing where they have the reduced ult charge when you shoot tanks. Nobody gives a frick, dude. They shoot the tank just as much. Like when you have like things like that are like small minutia. Like if it doesn't actively, like if you don't notice how it feels, I don't think people really care. If that makes sense. Like I think like the people that the brainlets that are going to be swapping you in spawn, unless they already have the ultimate, like, oh, I lost 10% more ult charge this patch. Gosh darn it, swaps Malga anyway, right? Like I think you actually have to be like more aggressively with how you like do like the whole hero design or how they feel, or like make Roadhog not blow up Winston or whatever, because like I think the ult charge swap was like a strategic negative thing. But like the large, you could make 30, you could literally make the go to 0% ult charge. Like you keep 0% ult charge. I think you'd still have a tank counter swap problem. I think it would be almost.
Well, I want to go beyond the 0. I mean, this is
I would like beat them over the head with a hammer. Somebody knocks on the door, just knocks them out.
I want someone to punch him so that they know how it feels. But like, no, I mean,
I'll sit in the lobby. I'm ready.
Again, I can't say I've investigated this idea very thoroughly, but I'm channeling my inner AVRL. Throw this fucking shit out. Make it hurt. Make it hurt, like make it do something negative so that like, again, it should be like a cost to it. I think it's just too free for the advantage it gives you.
Crazy, like it doubles your respawn timer.
I actually thought about this.
You have to respawn, what if you have to, like, if you swap heroes, you have to respawn again.
Yeah, you have to like take an extra 10 seconds, so you like died an extra time to swap your hero.
What you're saying is we need to take control of a quick play hack. You can bring back creative patches. You can just blame us. I'll delete tanks for everybody, or I'll make everything tank, and I'll be the AVRL, quick play hacked, and then they could just blame me for it being bad. But that's what quick play hacked needs to be, right? Because there's got to be some extreme cooking. They are like cooking in some ways, but they got to do like this level of extreme cooking, surely.
We put Spilo to sleep, I'm afraid.
Would it be a death respawn punishment?
No,
Like
but when you swap,
when you change a hero after you die, though, like would it be after you die?
it would just be when. Well, in my mind, it'd be like you're
So,
swapping. It takes 10 seconds. You're dead again.
Yeah, so like,
Yeah,
okay,
but-
let's say you die and you swap immediately, it would add 10 seconds to your timer. But if you're in spawn and you swap, you respawn in a 10-second timer. Like, maybe it doesn't give you a death, but like, you do die. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't count to your stats, but it's like, you now have to sit and spawn and wait 10 seconds.
You
to
can
get
give him a
your new
little
hero.
animation where like
Wait,
when you're getting
wait,
res.
wait,
You know when you're
wait.
getting res, there's like a little
Simple solution,
materialization
simple
of your
solution.
body. Yeah, go ahead.
Put a cooldown on changing heroes. You know how when Echo copies you, you can't change your hero if you're dead? You know what I'm saying, right? If your Echo copies you and she's still alive and she kills you, you try to press your hero select thing and it will not let you swap heroes until the
What
Echo
if you
copy is
misclick?
dead. Okay, no, but here it is. Here it is. You don't have to kill the person again. You make it so that you cannot use the hero select screen for 10 seconds after you've died.
I'm trying to conceptualize this.
So you have
you're-
to sit and spawn and wait 10 seconds before
10
you
seconds.
can get.
Yes. That way you don't have this whole second death shenanigans. I don't know if I'm full in on the idea. I'm cooking with you, but if we're gonna try that, that would probably make the most sense.
I actually understand what you mean there. That's actually pretty decent.
That would be the only way to do it without it being super clunky or weird. I think you'd have to lock it. Like the same way, like when Echo copies you, you can't physically change heroes. It'd be the same thing. You come out, you wake up from your respawn. You have to wait 10 seconds before you choose.
I don't know what it is, but like everything where we want to punish counter swapping, for some reason it just feels bad for the player. Like I can just imagine
I
all the
agree with that.
players out there just complaining like, dude, this feels so bad. I want to counter swap. Like people want to
Yeah,
counter
but
swap.
here's the
They're
thing:
just trying to win
everything
the
feels
game.
bad. That's the nature. Like, everything
that's-
feels
that's
bad for
true, too.
someone. So it's like
That's
someone's
true.
losing and suffering in any of these. Like you have to again. You have
But I
to.
guess,
I
like,
mean,
you
you have to
know-
pick and choose the tank problem.
What if you?
What is it?
What
What
if
is
you-
worse?
What if you get RNG'd like I don't know, it's this imagine hypothetical, you're rolling out a Lee Jung Tower, it's a control map, it's completely symmetrical, you don't know what the other team's rolling out on. You roll out, it's like, oh shit, I'm on the wrong tank, this guy's counting me just by pure RNG. And now you feel like you're getting giga punished because you picked the wrong hero out of spawn. And now you have to like get some like penalty for swapping. Now you're getting punished again. Do you know what I mean? It's like a double punish.
Well,
I don't know.
Okay, we're going a little bit deep into this. This is an argument for a draft mode where you can at least see their hero picks before you, because that's like actually more of like a minor problem, which is like at the start of a game you get fucked in these situations, but that's like not the major substance of the tank counter swapping problem, right? The counter swapping problem is like in the middle of the game. So there are ways to mitigate the start of the game problem that you're describing, where it's like the first physical fight, this happens, but it never happens anywhere else. Like it's not relevant anywhere else. So that's like a specific to the situation you're describing that could be countered in a different way.
I guess.
We need to
I just
try
think
this.
I think the best solution would be to like, this sounds dumb, but just have like tanks not counter other tanks. Like the counter should come from other roles. But like it just sounds I don't know. Even just saying that, it just sounds like, well, obviously, but how would you even do that? I don't know.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie with you guys. I'm not gonna lie with you guys. This we need to take the developers and be like, guys, tank buster tanks should not be a thing.
Agreed. Yes.
It shouldn't be a thing. It shouldn't be a thing. It's not. There's just
You know-
actually no reason for it to be a thing.
Wait.
And I'm gonna go one further. Is it shouldn't ever feel like there's such a thing as a tank buster. We've already talked about this, like the psychology of why people play Orisa, right? Orisa versus like I'm trying to think of like Orisa versus Winston isn't even that good. Like it's really not even that good on most maps, right? Like it's really easy to avoid her. She chases you across. Like how many times I've played in like Masters lobbies and I dive the high ground and Orisa sits there, javelin spins back at me and throws javelin at my bubble. I'm like, you're a worthless beat. Like you're awful at this game. What are you doing? And it's all for me. It's like an ego thing. Like you're so stupid, right? But for the average player, that's like, man, this is annoying. They're counter swapping me. But like, why do people do that? We have to. I think to an extent, maybe that's unchangeable. But I agree with the whole like I'm down to cook with the hero lockout thing. But I do think that like there's some other things that we can then make it feel less good. Like not just punishment, but like, you know, anyway, I won't cook again. I won't cook again.
He's done.
No,
He's
keep cooking. Honestly,
hung up his
I won't do
apron.
it. I won't do it again. I won't do it. Okay, one more thing. Why is Orisa focus tank? Why does Orisa focus tank? Because who else can she reach? What else can she shoot? She
Yeah,
gets poked out by every single poke character. She can't freaking shoot the Tracer Genji because those characters are impossible to shoot. So all that she does, like you can't. It's the same thing with Malga. Like Malga has like all this like cool weapon thing that you could do, like set, but you can't use it because you just die instantly. Anything you get poked out, like that. That to me is the fundamental design. It's like,
isn't that
like,
every tank?
Malga.
Like every tank has a range limitation, and so the closest thing to shoot
But-
is the other tank.
but other tanks have mobility. Other tanks have choices. Even freaking Reinhardt. Like the new pin with Reinhardt totally opened up options. As bad as Reinhardt feels in Overwatch 2, without the loss of the off tank, the only thing that's kept him relevant is the new charge. The only thing that's kept him relevant.
That's
and
very
all
true.
the tanks that focus tank, all the tank busting tanks, with the exception of maybe Malga, do have severe mobility options.
I
don't
just think
care what anybody says, but mobility creep is Overwatch 2.
the outside of dive tanks, I think the default for all tanks is just to shoot the other tank because it's the closest thing within your range, and you have limited range.
Not,
So-
not,
The dive
I'm
tanks
telling
can
you, I'm telling you, not as somebody who's coached like dive tanks are more so, but no, not for Reinhardt in most circumstances. It's not good to trade the enemy tank, especially depending on the enemy tank. Heck, even for the more tank, like the funny thing is I've coached a lot of Malga and Orisa, but Orisa especially, Orisa, you don't always even want to shoot the enemy tank. Sometimes you actually have, but it's not very intuitive to do it, if that makes sense. If you've watched A10 on Zarya, right? A lot of what A10 coaches is like, you shoot the enemy tank if that's all you can reach, but you actually have to like train yourself to right-click backline, beam back anytime that you can. But like a lot of these like more range-limited tanks are like way more limited with who they can shoot, and that's why they just tank bust.
So here's the thing I want to add to that equation is that while I, in theory, 100% agree with you, Spilo, it's like, make tanks not counter other tanks, yeah, easy peasy. To speak on the defense of the devs, it's like, I think there's a lot of considerations to juggle because it's like, we want to create a unique new tank that is, going to sell a season. We want to create tanks that are fun and like feel fun to play. And then we also want to create them like, we also got to think like, which 10 other tanks do they not fucking counter? Right. And I think that like, I agree that we can definitely 100%, there's a lot that can be done balance wise. And again, given the right minds, I have no doubt that they could make better versions of these tanks. But that's the reason I always gravitate towards format solutions rather than, or systemic solutions, I should say. Format perhaps alludes to 5v5-6. Systemic solutions rather than balanced solutions, because like inevitably this will crop up again, probably in some way when some new thing is introduced.
Yeah,
I feel like
the way I look at it though is like systemic design, not like oh this number needs to go up or this number needs to go down.
Oh,
it's like
100%.
systemic design issues. Like no matter how much you tweak fortify, if Orisa can't move, then she's going to be a tank focusing.
But
tank.
what
Like,
but
there's
what you're
nothing you
talking
can change
about
it.
is entailing like changing literally like reworking like 10 tanks at once.
Maybe just let it
Which
Orisa
is just
fly. Let Orisa fly. Let Orisa fly. I actually think Ramatra's fine. We talk about a couple of tweaks to Omnic
but
form.
so
He has the
Ramatra,
range.
Ramatra's fine now, but then you change 5 tanks, then you realize, well, one of the 5 tanks we changed now fucks Ramatra because we did this thing to make him unfuck the other guy.
Well, yes and no. The whole point of mobility is that it gives you positional choices and target focus choices that you didn't have before. That's the thing.
Right.
Now, is there a world that indirectly could lead? Absolutely. But like when you, with the thing with mobility creep is that it opens up your choices. I mean, not to change subject here, but like the whole point of Venture, right? Venture's not that good versus tanks, but it doesn't matter because they can take different off angles and choose different targets and be creative with their positioning. And I think like whenever you like even look at the DPS cast, what are the tank buster characters in the DPS cast? All of the range limited characters. Torbjorn, Bastion, Reaper. They can't move. Reaper's Wraith sucks. Reaper's TP sucks. So what does Reaper do? He spends a lot of time focusing tank. And that's like they have to. Like it just has to, because if you try to do anything else, you just die. I mean, even look at a character like Malga. Malga actually has like this really cool mobility skill, but because again he doesn't have any sort of CC counterplay, because his hitbox is huge, because all of his mitigation is tied into self-heal, he can't use his run except to go away, because if he ever tries to make a play, he dies instantly. So instead he has to sit there and shoot tank. I think like that, like it's not. I don't want to come across like somebody that's like we talk about like damage needs to go up and we did retweak these or homogenize all these characters. But like again, when you have characters that can't move, they become. You remember the term caricatures I used to use? They become caricatures. When you can only focus one thing, you can only do one thing. You have to be good at the thing, otherwise the character's trash.
Yeah, and I definitely I don't want this to sound like I'm not agreeing with you, because I do. I think what I'm trying to get at is that I don't think there's a singular solution to any of these things, and
certainly not.
We basically
certainly not.
need big picture changes on multiple
We saw
areas.
it with season 9. We
Right.
saw it with season 9. That was a systemic. That was a big picture thing, right? They did with the hitbox, and I think that was pretty well largely received. So I agree.
Not at first.
Well, in the practice range, in the pre-access
there,
play.
just put it to misery.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
hopefully we'll go ahead, Flats.
I don't know if you know, but there's like a old Riot dev clip where the difference between Blizzard and Riot is Blizzard comes up with a really cool idea and implements it into the game and thinks about how it'll affect the game later. Well, Riot, when they implement something new, thinks about how it will affect the game before they implement it. So like when you make a new character in Overwatch, right? Let's say Venture, like a character that digs underground, pops up, has a nice drill, like runs in, like a lot of these like cool things, but doesn't think about like what kind of an impact that'll have on the game. Like what is it like having another DPS CC character that has invulnerability of going underground, right? Like you know what I mean? Like right now, like it doesn't seem like a big problem, but it could be something like in other characters it's a little bit more apparent quickly, right? Well, when Riot develops characters in their games, it's like, okay, like we're adding another smoke character. How many, like what do the smoke characters currently do? Like what way can we make it so that it's different from the others but not enough to like break the game, right? So like as well as right, but you would have to literally like rework so much to the point where they would fundamentally be different. And I don't know if they're willing to cross that road and go down that one. And two, yeah, I don't know how do you like contextualize that to a lot of people, because people love their characters, right? Like, and this is going to be controversial. I don't care. I think you're right on what you said earlier on like the patient tanks, like your Winston, your Ryans, right? Like I think that Overwatch 2, when it first was designed, that first beta, before a lot of the old team either quit, laid off, whatever, and like the new guard kind of came in, it looked like they were leaning more in the old traditional main tank role as the tank role. But then it changed, and it seems almost as Overwatch 2 has developed, it now leans more into the old off-tank role, where it's more damage, more stand, like, you know what I mean? And where, yeah, you're getting that reward for always having uptime and always sitting there and always shooting the tank and always doing other stuff, instead of like being patient or making plays or whatever it is. And I think we're so deep in that at this point that it would take a long time to write that ship back if you wanted to go that way. And also, there's a lot of people that love those characters. Like, don't care. I think when Roadhog's meta, the game is terrible. I think that everyone has a terrible time. Nobody has a good time. Support players, DPS players, tank players, everyone's fucking miserable. The only person having fun is maybe the hog player. But then, then you kill a character or you kill the game for that hog player, that they love that character, they love that playstyle. And it's like, is that fair to them? I don't know. I think it depends on a couple things, because like, when Hog in the beginning of Overwatch 2 was shit, it was ruining the game for everyone. And then he was terrible for like 7 seasons, and you kind of feel bad for the Hog players not being able to play their character for 8 months or whatever. But objectively, it was a better time. So
I don't feel bad.
It's like, it's such a weird thing, because you'd have to like actively piss off a lot of people, and you'd have to be very confident that you're making the right decision. So
they did it with a FAR rework. I mean, it's not perfect, but you talk about like a character that I find to have a lot more counterplay, that's a lot more interesting, has some of the edges of what made her really frustrating to play against kind of shaved off in the favor of like giving her more engagement options now. Like she can actually duel with flankers now because of the increased like that's the kind of thing. Like let's be honest. There's not going to be a lot of characters that are going to be Winston, Tracer, Ana, Zenyatta quality. That's just not going to happen. Like, we're never going to make a character like Bastion, like this archetype of beautiful, dynamic character design. Spilo's in tears over how dynamic and mobile and all the catchphrases that I say, right? but like you could take the edges off. Like you could take the edges off. Like you talk about like the amount of people that are married to Roadhog and having that kind of thing. But how many people are not playing Roadhog because he just does the same thing? Or how many people are not playing the game because of Roadhog? Right? How do you contextualize that? Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's hard to do. And I think there's also like I think people like look at me and they're like, I want to put this, I want to, I want Mercy gone. Like I want characters like Mercy gone. But then I sit down at the creator summit with Skiesti and we're talking about like what would we do to like change Mercy, and it's like we're bang for bang, like perfect. I'm totally in line. She's like, you're not rewarded for using your mobility, you're not rewarded for moving around a lot. You just kind of sit there and pocket. It's not a very fun play style, and nobody likes res. And I'm like, yeah, it feel like my voice is coming out of her mouth, and she's like the Mercy main, right? I think that like, okay, with exception of Hog mains because those guys are degens, but like. Same thing with Junkrat players. When I was doing the whole Junkrat rework, I was in voice with like a lot of GM like Junkrat OTPs, and when I was doing like what are some things that we could do with Doom, like a lot of these like tweaks and ideas, like they're in line with what a lot of those player bases actually want. And for those that aren't, frankly, respectfully, but frick you, screw you guys, because you don't. If you're the type of person that enjoys that gameplay loop, we don't really want to cater you in the first place. I know that's harsh to say, but that's my take. That's my take. But I think for the large majority of the player base, we can actually do like what do Wrecking Ball mains want? What do Orisa mains want? I think you'd find a lot more common ground than you think. And I don't think that the changes would have to be that complex. This is more my wheelhouse, and I've been jawing off, so I will.
Yeah. No. Again, I think it's just good to get all these ideas out. I think when it comes to reworks, again, I being real, I don't feel too passionately about any one solution of anything to Overwatch. Like I'm just like,
Agreed.
I'm trying to be very realist to like a lot of things, and it's like, I understand how the dev cycle works. Right? I understand that like we may throw shit out and be like, oh, they should do this, and it's like, well, some guy on the team has to do that, or some group of people on the team have to do that, and it's like, even the meager ask of like, well, it's just 10 reworks. Yeah, that's like a whole season. That's a whole season's worth of work, like only on the rework. So it's like. Yeah. So I think it's good.
I'm of the opinion that this is my stance, but I'm not expecting it to fully happen to that degree. And even something like a Pharah rework, which is just a couple of tweaks. Hey, great job. Nice job. Is it perfect? No. Still frustrating to play versus Pharmacy? Yeah, sometimes. But you know what? It's a step in the right direction. And anytime they do things like that, I'm always positive. I'm not the negative Nancy type of guy. It is what it is. I'll live with Roadhog in my games if that's just how it's going to be. But if you're going to hold me, and say, what do you think? That's what I think. And like you said, I really don't think that's the end all be all necessarily either.
It does seem like from all the changes we're discussing, from all the things that we'd like to see changed, it's all like becoming more and more big picture. So what I'm getting is that we're at the point where I think small changes and minor tweaks just don't do it anymore. Like I think maybe we all agree that like small tweaks are probably not going to fix the issues. So maybe we all just want some like giant, huge change, but it just seems hard to pin down exactly which direction it should go in. And then from the dev side, they're like, well, where do we want to put our resources? A lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of dev work required, a lot of experimentation. So yeah, I mean, it seems like a very difficult thing all around.
Which is why.
Reason why I like the hero design thing. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, because I think we want to move on now we've talked about this for a lengthy amount of time. So I was going to say, this is why I pinned the blame on creators and give them creator patches and let them go wild with ideas. The AVRL break the glass patch, and then Spilo's rework patch, and give Sam and Guru and Hawk like a 6v6 patch or whatever they want to do. So, all right. Any other big things you really want to express before we move on to talk about other things that are going on in this season? No? Okay. Cool. Well, AVRL wasn't wrong when he said the last time he was on the podcast, we started on the patch notes and then we never finished. We just kept going. So in theory, we were discussing the patch notes, and this all started with the Wrecking Ball change. And that was the last tank change. So we can now move on, I guess, to talking to talking through some of the rest. And we'll pause. I'll talk to Venture last because I want to talk about Venture. But Sombra, total virus damage down from 100 to 90. Any strong feelings on this one? Shrugs. Closed captions, they shrug and they raise their hands. So no strong feelings. Tracer, developer comments, there is now more downtime before Tracer can safely re-engage after driving her away, and Pulse Bomb will require more precision. So the recall cooldown has been increased from 12 to 13 seconds, and the base projectile size of the Pulse Bomb is now 0.25 meters. Any strong feelings?
Pulse Bomb change is good. Recall, not sure.
Yeah, Pulse seemed a little too consistent, so probably good change there.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
I like Tracer. I like Tracer being a meta though, so I didn't want to see like a giant nerf. So this is probably a fair nerf, you know.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's fair. I had a game with Tracy the other day where I died with recall in 1 second, and I was like, patch nerf, absolute patch nerf. Okay, we'll bring back Venture in a second because I want to talk more dedicatedly about Venture. Let's move over to supports. Iliari's primary fire recovery rate increased from 0.2 to 0.25, and the secondary fire heal, or the secondary fire heal per second, increased from 105 to 115. Any strong feelings on this one?
I think actually, I mean, Laurie seems a little bit better actually. I know it's not like a huge change, but at least I've noticed just, you know, Bapalari feels pretty good on some maps. So it's such a small change, but it's weird. Like I feel like I can kind of save my tank a little bit more again. I like it. I actually like that change.
Does it seem like the devs are trying to push Ilari into more of like a healing role rather than dealing damage? Is that it's the kind of the feeling I get with the direction of this hero. It is a very small change though, so I mean I'm not going to freak out, but it is interesting that they opted for this angle, you know.
Her identity is just so strange. Like, I think she's, I've said this a lot in my stream, but like, I think she's like sleeper for like one of the strangest designs we have in Overwatch, period. Like, what does she do? She's like the off-angle turret enabler. I think I read somewhere in Reddit, she's like the Moira for people with aim, and it like made me like die laughing.
Jesus.
It's like, what does
Oh
she
my
do? Like,
God.
she just like, she's not particularly good at like tank healing. She doesn't really have any particular utility. She doesn't really, her mobility is actually pretty weak as well. She's in a really strange state. But yeah, I think it's like it's a nothing burger change for me personally.
Interesting. Okay. We'll leave that sentiment hanging about the Moira for people who can aim. Lucio, Sonic Amplifier damage per projectile decreased from 20 to 18, and the shockwave, or the sound wave, sorry, the right click, damage increased from 35 to 45. How do you feel about this one?
Stop buffing Boop. Stop buffing Boop, dude. I'm sick of it. I love Lucio, but I'm so fucking sick of it, dude. Like, I'll never forget that goddamn Iman clip of him going off the map on King's Row on Joker Queen ult, first starting from the right side of the
Dude,
third
and that
point, going
OWCS
90
match
degrees.
literally
Yeah.
lost us the game. Literally
Yeah,
lost
I'll
us
never
the game.
forget that, dude. Like, I know that like Lucio's Boop was not good for a long time, and yeah, I know it's better. Like, just stop fucking buffing that thing. Like, you know, like, I love Lucio. I love him being meta, but Jesus, stop. It makes me feel like the tank pass was cosmetic.
As long as Lucio stays meta, I'm okay.
This change to me feels like they wanted to target like the ult charge rate a little bit, because that's really what the damage change mostly affects. I mean, oh sure, like I think time to kill does change as well, but you're just going to charge beat slower off the left click damage going down, right? So I think that's the main area that's really been nerfed over anything else.
Could they not just reduce the ult charge required?
No, it's
possibly.
global
But
conspiracy.
then it heals. Then I guess the healing.
This does both at the same time.
Yeah. Then I guess the healing will generate it faster as well.
Yeah, like I don't know, like
heal body.
I don't know if Lucio was doing too much damage. I don't know, like what. When I thought about like, okay, Lucio's quite good in season 9, I never really thought, oh, it's because of the damage. So I don't know. Seems like a strange change to me, but maybe Soundbetter was charging too quick.
It was damage for sure, especially because of the season 9 projectile changes. He like went off the wall.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Lucio meta, especially the fact that people actually unironically are playing Lucio in ranked to me is like, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, probably the triple dinks are what they were targeting, where you just suddenly get deleted by a Lucio. Okay, Life Weaver, I'm sure there'll be some takes on this one. The rejuvenating dash heal increased from 50 to 60, and the Tree of Life pulse increased from 75 to 90. How do we feel about this one?
They baited me. The stupid patch notes, man. Go ahead, AVRL.
This is just like the Kylo Ren more meme. Every patch is like more Life Weaver, just more. We don't know what to do with Life Weaver, just more. Make the numbers bigger every patch until Life Weaver gets broken. It's like, okay, too much, now go back down, and then we just get this infinite cycle of more, too much, go back down, and then just repeat the same thing again. I don't know. This is how Life Weaver is now. Just keep tuning the numbers up, broken, go down, keep tuning back up again.
They said the director's take too before this. They were like, we're looking to find what ways that we can buff Lifeweaver in healthy ways or whatever. They like use that specific term, and I'm like, oh, nice. And then like this, I'm like, oh no. Oh man.
So do you want to
Fucking
Just
elaborate,
remember
reduce the
Spilo?
weapon
Snippers.
swap, man. Please reduce the weapon swap time.
Before
Like
we go
even
to
more.
flats, Spilo, just elaborate on that. What is it that upsets you about this?
Well, okay, because all Life Weaver does is heal. All he does is heal and survive, heal and survive, heal and survive, right? And I know some people are gonna be like, yeah, but it's okay to have like a non-aim support and stuff like that. Which, like, sure, like, but then we need to put some thought into like how his like utility works and how can we make it more skillful and more interesting and like provide more value. And like, I know some people are gonna mad at me for saying this, but like, why the frick does Life Grip not cleanse? Or why do we why is there have we not looked more at like pedal platform and what we could do to improve that experience overall? Why don't we reduce the, even if you don't want to be an aim hero, okay, fine, being able to defend yourself, why can we not reduce the weapon swap timer between your heal and your damage? It feels so clunky and slow. Like there's so many like little tweaks that you could do, I think, with this character, that besides just buffing the healing up. Like I think the recent healing change they did where they like that was relatively whatever. But this one is pretty relevant. And again, it's not so much like the number changes itself, it's the spirit of the change that confuses me.
That's fair. That's totally fair. Flats has turned his cam off for a second. We've all swapped our positions, except AVRL. AVRL remains constant.
That was
And on
that,
on
that,
that note,
was
AVRL.
that was the remove the glass moment for Spilo before the Life Weaver. There it is.
Well, what is your thoughts on the whole Life Weaver situation, AVRL?
I just think this hero's design is still really flawed. Like, I mean, I think we just had a conversation about the fact that Skietzi admits that, you know, heal botting Mercy is not fun. Well, I think the same is probably true in Life Weaver, but the utility is just, I don't know, Piddles just still seems like an awkward ability to use and get good value out of. I still think most players just, it's just like a hard ability to figure out, like, what are you actually supposed to do with some of this stuff? Pull is still interesting, but to me, it's like a res adjacent ability, which I'm not a huge fan of. And you know, it still feels weird to play with. It's I like playing against Pull feels super frustrating. You're about to kill someone and they just get yoinked. That's why it feels res adjacent to me. And then, you know, there's plenty of games I've been yoinked at a bad time as well, which kind of doesn't feel great. I know this hero is, like I agree with Spilo, mostly just a heal bot, and I just think any heal bot support is not, like, should not be fun in the game. I think most people probably don't find that fun, but it's just not interesting design in the game at all. So
It's just not
Yeah.
necessary either. Like with one tank, you know, you just don't need that much healing a lot of the time. And so I remember I hate playing with a Life Weaver because I know if we go Life Weaver, that like I'm gonna have to do something stupid as a tank to justify this Life Weaver's existence. Otherwise, he's gonna have nothing to do. And I think the weird thing is that like, he's like this low skill support character with like high skill opportunity with pedal, but the level of like coordination required to pull that off, especially with Life Rip, is so high that it's weird having like a easy to play support hero with high skill potential utility. It's like like you would never play Life Weaver in pro play where they would actually use Life Grip and pedal. But then if you're playing Life Weaver and like low to mid rank play, those players are not smart enough to get consistent value out of pedal platform and Life Grip. So it's like these incongruous options that just really like screw like what is the character supposed to do. So you just end up basically using pedal platform for yourself and just heal and heal and heal and heal.
Yep.
So I'll try and engage in a little bit of Life Weaver apologia because I think that there's like he's close to being a really interesting character because I think, as Spilo alluded to, there should be room for a character who's doesn't require mechanics essentially, right? Like, or when we say mechanics, aim mechanics, right? Shouldn't require like
Agreed.
you need to shoot to get value out of this hero because that was the whole appeal of Overwatch. That's what drew so many people to watch. Like I could play Winston, I could play Ryan, I could play Mercy. And I think AVRL and I both, you know, we both enjoy the MOBA aspects where we're like, there can be support that's utility. You know, you spoke about this at length the last time you were here, AVRL. This was to your break the glass suggestion that if anyone, again, is listening to this podcast but hasn't heard the other one, is like, well, we need allowing the tanks to be shaved down allows for more supports to be, their utility isn't necessarily just healing. An idea I just had in my head as you guys were talking was like, if you had reversed the execution of his two abilities, mightn't they have been a lot more skillful? So like, if you just platform someone on a click, but to grip them, you actually had to like throw the thing, it would like automatically, in my mind, reverse like the reward ratio, because it's like much more sensible to just be like, I want to lift this guy up, because like it's so hard to do that in combat, right? Like you're having like pre-set up the lifts. So in theory, if you were like, I want to lift this Cassidy up right now, he's high nooning, or I want to lift this guy, he got slapped, lift, rather than like grip, which is just like the push the button and you pull. And the same and the opposite for the grip, where it's so frustrating to be like, you over there, push the button, that guy's immortal, he's over here now. Whereas if you had to like throw it, and then like it like had a little cast, and it's like, now it's gonna pull you. Just off the rip, I don't even know if it'd be a good idea or not. It's just something that came into my mind because again, to bring the example that I referenced last time in the AVRL discussion, the equivalent I can think of a MOBA is like the Vengeful Spirit swap, which is like you're the support ability where you swap your position with a person. And that's much more dynamic and that's more interesting because it requires a cost on the side of the user. It's not just push the button and they're safe. But that might be a bit
just do
hard
that.
to put
Give
in
him
no watch.
swap.
It might be hard to do watch because can you imagine swapping your tank with Life Weaver and he's like, dash out, oh fuck it, I'm out.
No, but he chooses when the swap happens, though, so it's not random for the Life Weaver. So actually, I think that would be better ability. Just replace the grip with the swap. Actually, I think that's insane.
I mean, I kind of like the pedal idea. I'm not gonna lie. Like, just being able to not have to worry about like the timing and the placement. They have to step on it. Like, of course, there's people could use it for griefing, but like for the most part, I mean, people are already using character for griefing anyway, right?
Yeah, but then people will say like, oh, but I like to use pedal for a setup. I like to place it here so I can, like save it for later, then use it later. You know, like you just lose that as well.
Well, what is Spilo's rant earlier about? Fuck those guys. That's my stance. Fuck them guys.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing is like there's like so many more uses for what SVB is saying. Like
you should just do my idea. You can just pedal on the wall and it just pushes you like we're playing orcs versus something, whatever. The tower defense game. You know what I'm saying? That tower defense game where like you have this like wall thing that pushes the orcs into the pit.
Well, it just turns into like a scene out of a Star Wars movie where the compactor is like slowly pushing two Life Weavers.
Yeah, but it's just one. But it's just one. It's just one.
Yeah, but the other Life Weaver has the other Life Weaver has his own wall and he's pushing you in too.
Yeah, then you get pinned. You take pin damage between them. Yeah, nice. We'll do that.
I'm hoping the devs will have enjoyed our unhinged cooking and probably been like, "This is why we don't let these guys balance the game." Fuck them guys.
This is why the creators got to take. We got to take control of Quick Play Hacked. That's what we got to do.
What you're suggesting is some sort of political riot where we take control of the Capitol building, which is the Dev HQ, and just be like, "No, we will decide now how the balance is done." Okay. Flats, any thoughts on Life Weaver before we move on?
Fucking hate that hero. Just keep buffing him over and over. And oh, hang on, I'm lagging a little bit. Yeah, they just keep. I don't know. It's just another stupid numbers character. Reminds me of fucking Mauga. It's just numbers go burr, and it's just gonna suck until they just keep buffing him until something breaks. And it's still stupid. They took away the ram punch / fire strike through pedal. It just I had a fucking random game playing like quick play the other day with like friends and stuff at like 2 a.m. and because the new shroom mode, I get to fuck around a little bit more. I was playing some Rhine because like, normally if I play Rhine in like any game like that, you get the egomaniacs chasing you around in circles. But, luckily now I get to have a little bit of a good time. And I hit this Life Weaver, I'm not fucking with you, 10 times. 10 in a row. And yeah, they were getting pocketed by a Mercy. Yeah, they popped a tree, but I didn't miss. I hit 10 swings back to 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 back, and I didn't kill him. That's fucking stupid. That is fucking stupid. I don't care what anyone says. Fuck that guy.
I think someone could make a great rap song out of that back to back to back. That's a beat right there. I was half expecting drums to kick in, and then like AVRL takes over. He's like, all right, let me drop some heat for you guys right now. No, that's fair. That's totally fair. The tree is like massively overtuned. Like you can just fight anything while you're in the tree. So yeah, I think that's something for them to think about. Okay, moving on to Moira. Then the last actual patch change is
real quick.
Yeah.
I play Sigma and I had my flux blocked by a teammate's tree LOS blocking me out. So I was like, all right, very cool ultimate, very fun. The team trolling aspect of Life Weaver is just so cringe. I can't get over it.
Real.
I just lose an ultimate because my own Life Weaver blocked me. It's very cool.
Yep,
it's true. That is, yeah. It's not just the one thing; it's the many things that control you simultaneously, right?
And they weren't trying to troll me; they were trying to help me, but it screwed me instead. Actually, they accidentally trolled me. That's the power of this hero. The true team damage. This is a hero that deals team damage. You can PvP your own teammates.
There you go. There's an appeal there. It makes it sound like a good time, to be honest. Okay, Moira. So the Biotic Grasp, which is her damage per second decreased from 65 to 60, and then the Coalescent Self-Heal increased from 50 to 55. Any strong feelings on this one?
No, it's just to match the season 9 HP. Her damage was increased disproportionate to the amount of HP that everybody got, so her damage was higher proportionately, and now I guess it's more in line. So
Fair enough. Any strong feelings? I know Frito's here. He'd be wanting to go off about Moira being horrible, but I think
Horrible play against like Broken, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah. He just hates her existence in the game and like how easy it is to just free heal everything up and nothing ever dies, and she just right clicks and beats everything. Which I think
I don't. I had a more generalized point to make about supports. Like I don't know if this is a current trend. Maybe these specific patch notes are still too small to make a judgment call on it. But I'd be very interested in like a closer look at supports moving forward, where if they keep buffing healing numbers, like how quickly are we just going to go back to season 8? You know, like how quickly are we just going to remove the impact of the healing, the damage passive on DPS?
be really careful.
Or
That was the whole
negative
point
healing.
of season 9. That was the whole point
Yeah,
of season 9.
so I'm a little concerned because I just, you know, these patches I'm just like, oh, they increase healing again. Oh, they increase healing again. It's like, you know, we're heal creeping, guys. We're heal creeping back to season 8. I'm just saying, be careful.
I think it's a valid point. I think obviously like you want to be careful not to bump everyone's HP up and then just bump every other number up too. And it's like, well, what was that all about?
Yeah.
I just want to say before somebody says it, because it's going to happen. Someone's going to go, oh, it's just one little change though. But it's like, yeah, just one little change here.
Every patch.
And then just one little change here. But then just like a small change here. but like this character really needs just like a very small change. But like, because like, you know, it's been a few seasons that first character, like they just need a very small change. That's how power creep happens.
And then because that guy got to change, this guy needs to change too. Because we can't have that'd be imbalance if one hero got to change, this guy didn't have. So everyone needs to change. He's got to be balanced, right? So
Season 18, more HP for every character. Here it comes.
you actually physically cannot miss in season 18. Like they will move your crosshair onto the target. DPS passive is now negative 100%. So if there's not a DPS shooting, the target is unkillable.
Yeah, again, I think for those who maybe weren't around in the Overwatch 1 era, this is the power creep that a lot of Overwatch veterans fear, which is essentially that progressively small changes accumulated over time will result in a character eventually being hella busted before you realize it. So that's why I think morally most Overwatch 1 players are like, why are we doing this? Like, what's up with this change? Like, why are we doing this thing that won't change anything? That's, I think Spilo and AVRL maybe both said at the start, was like, doesn't change anything, but just it will 5 patches down the line. But right now it's like, what? So
I mean, they also said that part of the reason why they changed the HPs over nerfing a lot of the damage and healing was because psychologically players react really, really negatively when their characters get nerfed. So they're like, oh, like this way we can nerf everybody in a way without, you know, directly nerfing them. And it's like, yeah, but every time you give everyone a small buff and you're afraid of nerfing them, now you've created the same issue. It's gonna only go up, right? I'm like, oh boy, I'm scared.
See, what we need to do is we need to use our small platforms just to be really, really loud, obnoxious, and negative to counteract the psychology. Because then they'll go, oh man, these guys are onto us. Are their backlashes worse than the negative psychology of having a small nerf? So we got to be louder and more negative, more clickbait titles, more red text, more angry faces. Flats. We need a negative fate. So everyone knows the flats this. We need like flats like holding an axe or something instead for the thumbnail. Like that needs to be the thing that goes pop.
I'll be completely honest with you. I had a Blizzard nuke and cook video like after the beginning of this season. Like I actually like I've not been so pissed after like, you know, sitting in queue for hours, can't play with anyone. Fucking I got a game with that day we got to play with Seagull. There's a play of the game where I shattered 4 people. And the play of the game is Seagull coalescing them and gets 4 kills, and I'm getting bullied into the corner by the Orisa like it's middle school. Like they're taking my goddamn lunch money, and he kills everybody. But like you see me getting fucking blasted into the corner, and it's like, oh, fuck, I'm sorry. I hate this shit. Like I don't want to be here anymore. You know. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give them like a week to see if they can fix some of these issues. I want to give them a week, but man, I was this close.
They will trust.
Close.
They will trust. This dev team is better than Overwatch dev team, I will say. Definitely.
Yeah, they are.
Definitely better.
I'm sure the devs listening are delighted at our suggestion that what we need is more Overwatch
Like,
logo
whew,
and
at
a
least we're
down
better, guys.
arrow and a
At least we're
down
better.
arrow. Yeah. But at least we're
At least we're
better.
first.
At least we're better. At least we're better. Or it's like an Asmon gold face of just like, oh, what's going on here? Okay.
Maybe that's the one to go for.
Yeah. Okay, so let's head back up to Venture then. Let's dedicate a little bit of time to talk about Overwatch's newest hero. You know, so let's just talk big picture first before we necessarily specifically talk about the changes before they were put into the game. How do you feel about Venture, guys? Like, are we liking Venture? Are we liking Venture's place in the game? We'll go with AVRL first since he just changed his background. Closed caption: AVRL changes his background to a thumbnail about Venture.
See, the trick is you think I'm about to go, but really I'm just teeing up Spilo because it's another one of his YouTube thumbnails. This is another one of his videos. So really, you know, Spilo, take the floor. I'm just
Red
helping you out here. I'm helping you out here.
Yeah. I think we don't really know Venture yet. I was in your chat the other day, SVB, trying to get your 2 cents on it. I think it's really funny. I have like the two opposite extremes. I made some tweet about like I think Venture is really fun, maybe a little bit niche, maybe they're got some obvious weaknesses, maybe a little bit on the weaker power side. And I got freaking Hottie from Overwatch League, like freaking flamey. No, you're trolling. This character is absolutely busted. And then I'm checking out who was it? Who was it? It was you, SVB, and then Metro, and then people are like stuck in diamond with this character, and then obviously all the unranked GMs. Even people like the Fran were losing more games in Venture than they would on like any other DPS character. So my thought process is that I don't think we really know yet in terms of like the overall power spike, like how strong is a character. I think there's a lot of skill play, not just the mechanical side of things. I think the more I've played the character, like you actually have to like completely adjust play style. I think you got to change how deep you angle. I think there's some maps and some comps that feel really bad to play into. I think we got to look at that. I think we just don't really know. I think with a character with this high of a skill floor, I think you just have to let it cook and see what happens. I prefer that they focused a lot of their attention on some more like the quality of life, like bug fix kind of things first and just let it go. In terms of the character itself, I'm having a lot of fun. Some bad moments. Pharmacy and Power ESO first point. I literally did not know what to do. There was no target that I could even reach. I like go all the way in the back line. Everything's too far away. I can't even get there. But for the most part, I think pretty fun. Just kind of have to wait and see. I will say though that there are a little bit of extremes right now where like you can have these moments where you really cannot do anything at all. And then sometimes, like Flats, I think was saying earlier, where you could pretty much just one-shot somebody, and there's not a lot that they can do either. So I think that maybe that extreme is something to kind of keep an eye on.
Flats, your thoughts on Venture?
Fun. I agree. I think way too early to tell like how impactful they are. Just because like you're gonna have those moments where you get caught by surprise and they left click. Drill left click and you just boom, you're just dead instantly. But they also committed all their cooldowns to get to you, and it's like they probably traded, and it's almost like old Doom where you would go full charge, full punch for somebody in the back line and get a big trade kill, and if you killed the Ana or support, it's like that was worth, like okay, we probably win the fight off of that. Overwatch 2 isn't as actually simple as that, it's like there isn't always like, if you killed the Ana or killed the Kiri, like you guarantee win the fight. Not really anymore. Yeah, some characters have a higher chance than others, of course, but it's so strange. Like some games you see a Venture going crazy and killing multiple people a fight, and you're like, whoa, like they're going nuts. And then there's games where you didn't even know you had a Venture. Like you're like, oh, how long have we had a Venture? But yeah, I think it's probably going to take some time. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that's not blatantly obvious, like how broken the character is. Like, hell, thank God it's not like a Malga release where everyone goes, oh, shit.
I got a screen that I'd never seen before after playing Venture. It's like, you've been avoided by a lot of teammates. You may. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean,
Really?
So I haven't played that much Overwatch in this season 10. Not specifically because of season 10, just my own other priorities. But I have only played Venture in season 10. So like the last week, basically, I've been one-tricking Venture, and take with a pinch of salt that I suck. So my thoughts would be that as someone who played a lot of Reaper in Overwatch 1 as well, it's a reminiscent feeling where I think when it comes to like a hero who's fundamentally range challenged, if we can call it that, like just will always be short range, they can never be busted unless they're like so statistically busted that it's just like dumb. Like they're like so overstated, and that like the meta allows for like a brawl basically, that they're like the pick to have. Other than that, they're just always going to be good in some places and bad in other places. And that's how I felt with Venture, where it's like, as you said, Spilo, there's some maps where it's just like, I have to do gymnastics just to get close enough to even be effective at all. And like even fight where they're fighting. And there's also some comps where it's like, there's nothing for me to fight here. Like everyone flies away, like literally or metaphorically, they all just like disappear into the ether. So like, they'll see me coming and shoot me all the way, or they will, you know, the minute I do pop every cooldown to get close, they're just going to disappear away and I'm useless. But of course, there's other situations where, as you guys said, like the delete potential is insane. And I actually think that there's like, I personally, I don't know if you guys felt this, I feel like there's something wrong with Venture's footsteps. I don't always hear them when they're close until like I'm dead. And I felt like you just don't hear a Venture's footsteps very, very well. Like you can hear them dig and stuff, but if they just like walk up, again, take that with a pinch of salt that I suck, but I just feel like I'll like suddenly die to Venture. And like, chat, did anyone hear the Venture's footsteps? Did any of you hear the footsteps? Because I didn't. So I don't know if that's a part of it. But I do think that, yeah, it's most reminiscent in the sense of like it's a character that wants to trade kills, that can like burst to kill. But I actually think Blizzard hit the nail on the head in terms of the power. Like I think safe sided strong is where they landed. I think like this is a character strong in some situations and not so strong in others, not meta defining, I think. But not busted, but not frustrating. Although I know some people dislike dislike Venture. Depends probably on the hero. Like Ana players don't like Venture because like, well, you don't land asleep, you're dead. AVRL, how
I think
it's
a general good sign. Like I think we can all agree that like the hero doesn't feel it's too early to tell, right? Is the general sentiment, which is probably like great because it means Venture did not release as a giga-busted hero or super underpowered. Like we're not looking at a Lifeweaver or a Malga where it's very clear from day one. It's like, oh, this hero is bad, or oh, this hero is like too good. Like we've landed a good place, which is why I suspect that the devs had no reservations about putting Venture into comp day one. A lot of it due to the fact that we had the trial test, so people got to give feedback. We already got a day one Venture patch as well. Yeah, very unique hero design. I like the design a lot. It's certainly one of the most unique hero designs in Overwatch, but not in like a holy shit, are we still playing Overwatch kind of way. When Ball first released, we're like, what even is this? Is this an Overwatch hero or what? Like it's so insane. So we're not at that level of cooking, but we're cooking enough where you have a unique design where we've never had a burrowing hero before. I have some thoughts on invulnerability. I'm generally not a fan of invulnerability, but otherwise, short range is fine because I think short range, as long as you have like fun mobility to like allow you to play with that range, it's not an issue. What Spilo said about Reaper before is like a bit of an issue for Reaper, right? Like your short range and your mobility is not amazing, so you're just super limited, whereas that's not true for Venture. You can be very creative with the mobility as well. You can do all sorts of different combos and you have a lot of choice in how you use the mobility. You do a short pop-up, do a long pop-up, you extend your vulnerability to something like 5 seconds. I remember Jake saying like you can with your dig combined with like a maximum charge at the end of your burrow duration, you can have like 5 seconds or something of a vulnerability, which is like huge. But you can also make it really short if you want. The only like real scary thing is I just don't want to end up in a game where like you have a hypothetical stalling composition, there's a maze freezing, and then oh, here comes the Venture, here comes the burrow, and there's like 5 seconds of burrow plus pop up. Oh, now the next guy touches, and now the next guy touches, and it's just like infinite stalling. Is that bro? Can we ever finish this game? It's just infinite touching with all these invulnerable abilities that you can't counterplay, can't do anything against. So I have a lot of concerns about that, but I haven't seen that level of extreme play come through yet. Maybe down the lines when we have like pro scrimming in and you get some super organized games where like people find the wacky comps, you can play the Venture. But for the most part, it feels like a very fair hero, right? Because you guys have discussed already, there's legitimate counterplay, which is good. Like you want a hero that is strong in some areas, weak in other areas, and maybe has some obvious counterplay. And because it's DPS, Venture is a DPS, not a tank. I think the counter swap situation is not as extreme, so that's fine. Generally, I think this is a W. Like this hero to me is a thumbs up. Like good design, feels fair, is not giga busted or underpowered at launch. So yeah, happy to see where we go in the future of the hero, and how players can be creative and where they can take the skill ceiling of the hero.
Yeah. I also think one thing to shout out is that like the burrow visually like hasn't caused any problems in anything I've seen. Like there's never been like it would be so easy for it to like break the game's visuals or like to break some aspect of the map where it's like this is a hero moving underground and like this little debris being shifted up off of everything. But like it looks amazing and like it never has bugged. So shout out to the visual art team. Like that's crazy. That's super impressive in my mind to like just throw the hero in there and it hasn't caused a problem.
The
One of
fluidity
the best
is really good. It's almost perfect, I would say.
one of the best designs is the fact that you can die while burrowing. At first, I was like, "Oh, this feels kind of lame," but then I was like, "No, it's good because you don't want another Wraith form where the Reaper just presses shift. Like, well, can't do anything about that. So it's good that you can counterplay the burrow and that like the Venture just can't burrow in your face and just laugh at you. You know. So I'm glad that there's some punish there.
Personally, as on the giving side of the venture, I would trade a slightly faster burrow for a much shorter length of burrow. Like I think it feels a little bit too frustratingly long. Sometimes again, it could be skill issue on my part, but there are a lot of occasions where you're like, I feel like I burrowed like 2 seconds ago,
Yeah.
and I still got
Well, if you
pushed
get
out.
bumped, if you
Yeah.
get bumped at all, it delays the burrow by a lot. Like it slows down the burrow animation a ton. So getting booped, even just like nudged while you're burrowing, like really screws you over.
I don't want it to be an escape tool, especially not a reliable escape tool, because then it is just like Wraithform 2.0, and I
Right.
don't want two Wraithforms
Right.
in the game, right? So
Right.
I'm glad the burrow is slow, personally.
That's fair. That's a fair POV. Flats.
One of the
anything you
things that
wanna
annoys
add?
me. Oh no, go ahead. No, go ahead. No.
Oh, Flats. Anything you
Okay.
want to add on venture?
Nope.
Nope. All right, Spilo, go ahead.
One more thing. I think just for like the burrow reduced cooldown thing, I think they really. I hope that they change that. Like, because you have to do one of the things is you have to do the order of operations correctly. Like, you have to burrow, then drill dash, then like you hold the burrow, and then you get your drill dash back. So it's like this perfect fluid combo. Everyone loves it. But if you, for whatever reason, want to use your drill dash and then you burrow, well, now you have the full drill dash cooldown. I wish they do like they pull like a Doomfist and Ultimate kind of a thing where it was just generally a reduced cooldown for the drill dash, no matter what order of operations that you did it in. I think that'd be a little bit more fluid. Because it feels weird that you have to do it in this certain order to get the reward. If you try and like, for example, imagine like if Doomfist slamming in then punching out was worse than punching in and slamming out. Like you should be able to go either way, and it feels like you're kind of limited. That's one of my.
How would you generally reduce cooldown? Sorry, what do you mean?
The same way, like when you're Kitsune Rush and you have an accelerated cooldown reduction.
Yeah.
Whenever you're burrowed, you should just have an accelerated cooldown reduction. Right now, it just goes from 8 seconds to 4 immediately. It shouldn't do
Okay,
that. It should go 8,
I see what you
7,
mean.
6, 5. Right. There's something there in there where it could encourage you to stay in burrow for longer, but I think overall it would be a better change. There's like a lot of like weird things as well. Like I don't know if have you gotten stunned while trying to do the burrow drill dash combo before SVB? So you can get
Oh, you mean
stunned.
like you're burrowing and drilling in?
Right. So you burrow and you're channeling the drill dash, right? Like about to go. And if you get stunned, it puts both on cooldown, even though you haven't actually drill dashed yet. So there's like a lot of things like that feel bad, but I think that stuff will get fixed.
Yeah, I mean that's I have a general complaint about like if these kind of server issues seem to happen a lot more in Overwatch 2. Like my ping is like does deceptively bad. Like like it'll say 40 and it feels like 100 and like stuff like that happens all the time where it's like I thought I got these cooldowns off, but now they're both on cooldown and I got disrupted or whatever, right? So yeah.
No.
I do have a comment about the ult though. I'm personally not a fan of just like here's a DPS ultimate. It does damage. Have fun, guys. Like I don't know. Maybe it does. I can't remember where I saw this comment before. Someone made this comment, which I kind of agreed with, where it looks like the devs wanted to give Venture's ultimate some CC because it almost looks like an Earth Shatter, but then it's like, oh, this is a DPS. Remember, you can't give a DPS CC, so this is dumping a bunch of damage instead. So it's a weird ultimate, isn't it? Because it seems counterintuitive to the rest of the kit, whereas the rest of the kit makes you want to be like a close range melee-esque character, but then the ultimate's like, no, you do big damage at long range and you do very little damage at short range. So it's like kind of weird design that way. So other than that, it's just like a big damage ultimate. Put the nano on top of the ultimate, and now you're just like one-shotting people. I don't know if I'm a big fan of that personally.
Verticality too, right? You can't even be like a hair off the ground. Like I've been
you're in
grabbed and
grab.
I'm literally like on the and you can't use your ultimate. And like and the whole thing like, well, I'm on this layer and you're down there. It's even worse than Earth Shatter. Like I've had many times where I am looking at somebody, they are directly in front of me, there are no structures, there's no and it doesn't hit. And I'll go in the replay viewer and pull it up, and it goes right through them, and it doesn't hit. And then one of the examples I pulled up the other day is I was in a death match, and like I forget what it was. It was a warm up map like Chateau, and there was a Pharah like 15 meters, like not 15 meters, but like 15 feet off the ground, like, and I hit her with the ultimate, and I don't know how I did that. And I was like, how am I hitting you, but I'm not hitting the people that are right there? And like Avril said, it feels really unintuitive to use the ultimate and super inconsistent, like absolutely broken if the stars align. But I mean, how many times I feel like I have like almost a negative fight win percentage of that ultimate because every time I want to try to use it, I end up feeding. Like I can't quite get it to work. Or I'll use it and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna use it. Everybody looks at me and I burrow and I run away. It feels like Dragon Blade but worse in that aspect.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think my experience was like the first couple days, it's farming. It's like a 2K guarantee. Like you're gonna kill two. But I think much like a high noon, people got used to it. Now they're just like either they fully LOS it because it's not that hard, like you just wait it out, it's not that long, or it's like they just instantly kill you, or you have to like burrow or like instantly focus you.
Or they do this. They found this really OP strategy where they take a step on a stair. And now,
right
now they're invulnerable.
Well, exactly. It's just like they just stand. You can use the leverage. You can just again just hide for a second, like because it doesn't last that long, in terms of like how long you can save the shockwaves. So it's another feast or famine aspect of Venture, which probably is part of the whole feast or famine nature of Venture. Like you're either like again, it's like certain characters that like can't dodge it at all, and there's certain characters that like lol. You think that's gonna work again? Like a rallying brig is just like the hardest fucking like you're just like oh, okay, well then I'm useless now. So. But maybe that's fine because rally's also an ultimate or whatever. So I don't know the solution either. I don't think there'll be some systematic change to Venture Ult. Like I don't think they'll suddenly make it so that it's
just feels weird,
cannon.
you know.
Yeah, it does feel weird. I think they could work on how consistent it feels. Like maybe raise the ground threshold of it a little higher. But
like I said, like it even just feels weird from a design perspective where like melee close range it's like bad, then long range is good. It's like the opposite of the hero design. So I don't know.
Fair enough. Any other thoughts on Venture, Neil? Okay, well let's move on. I mean, I don't. There are the patch notes we can talk about, but I don't think it's like massively impactful. It's kind of I think we've covered on Venture like a lot about it, so I don't think we need to necessarily get into the specific changes. Let's talk about a bit of wide and narrow matchmaking because this is another big change that they brought about this season, and I want to take it to Flats first because Flats, you already alluded to some of your experiences with the wide and narrow matchmaking, but how have you felt it has gone down in what was a much look forward to change, I feel?
I think it was just like completely bonehead to not know that duo queue was gonna be suffering. Like, yeah, like I think it makes perfect sense in a world where 5 stacks face 5 stacks. I think stacks face stacks. That makes perfect sense. But considering a duo queue in the same space as a 5 stack is fucking wild. And I think the correct way to go about it would have been that if you do choose the duo queue, that you get put into both pools of the wide pool and the narrow pool. So there's a small chance you can get pulled RNG'd into a 3 stack versus another 2 and 3 stack or a 5 stack. But the majority of your games will probably be the normal narrow experience where you're playing against solo queue, duo queue players, just like it's always been. Because right now, in the way it is working this week, if you play anything above solo queue, you legitimately can't find a match. It's not possible. And that was, I think New was like 18 hours in queue one day and was like 13 hours in queue the day before. And then, me and Karq during drops got really tired of playing. So we just queued up ranked at like 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning. We sat there till 6 a.m. until Emong woke up and didn't get a single game, just watched videos and did react content and farmed. It was fucking easy. And then hand the stream off to him. It was like, oh no, we didn't get a ranked game. Who could have saw that coming? And we were like, I think he was Masters 1 and I'm GM 4. Like, that's fucking insane. And I know it's like competitive integrity and they want to keep it so like people aren't mid-maxing. And if you're like GM 1, you're not dealing with a GM 4 player and like trying to like mid-max the line. But that always is going to happen. It's always going to happen. You're never going to have a perfect rank system. Always someone's going to feel like they're getting cheesed in some way. hell, there's people that come in, at least I see every day, and they're like, you know, Flats, I had a lever in my game and I lost 35 points because it was a reversal. You know, like, how the fuck is that fair? And it's like, yeah, that's determined before the game even starts. Like, you know, if somebody fucking leaves your game, you know, and it's like, yeah, but you could duo queue with somebody, and then, you know, if the game doesn't look good, you have them leave, and now all of a sudden you're not losing as many points. You can cheese that, or you can hard pressure somebody out of the lobby because they're not playing well to try to see if you can preserve more points. Like, there's so many systems people think would be great, but they're not good. But in terms of like the actual wide and narrow, I think it's fine to have options for people to stack and not stack, and but like that shouldn't affect the normal ranked experience either. Like, yeah, like solo queue players shouldn't play stacks. That's not fair. But at the same time, though, there's a reality where the only reason why people scream about the stacks is because they face the giga stack. They face like the pro player stack. That's where you get fucked, because otherwise, most players, even in GM, when you play a stack, you're not playing the pro player 5 stack. You're playing like, you know, a college team or a tier 3 team or a bunch of like really good friends, and it's like, or it's the streamer stack. And like, you, if you are better players, like let's say you're on the higher end of the matchmaking of that, and they give you like, okay, like you're playing a stack of low top 500 players, and then the other team, which is all solo queue players, are on the upper end of top 500. They're better players. Like, there's a good chance they'll win that game even though they're solo. But people always default and they remember the 5 stack fucking NYXL, you know, like a 3 stack, whatever the hell from back in the day. And that's what they point to, and they'll always remember those games. But yeah, I know that they're trying to keep it good for solo queue players, and, you know, they're trying to make it so stacks can play too. And I appreciate the effort. That's why I want to give them a chance to fix it. But, you know, for me personally, I feel like I saw this coming from a mile away. Like, the second I read the blog post, I'm like, wait, you guys are putting duo queues in wide groups? Like, you know that's going to break the whole system, right? And it just makes me concerned. Like, how did nobody see that coming, you know? And how long is it going to take to get fixed? And, you know, what is the solution? Are they just going to apply the Masters thing where it's like within 3 divisions, like copy paste it and see what happens? So I don't know. And it sucks because last season's rank season was such an improvement to season 8 and before that. To feel like such a step back so quickly just fucking hurts, dude.
I got a pretty quick one on this, so I'll just go. Yeah, to me, as soon as I saw the sort of wide narrow system, I'm like, bro, this is just two separate queues. I mean, you've essentially done 2 separate queues, and as soon as you do 2 separate queues, the end result is you're just gonna have like way longer queues. That's just it. I mean, it's mathematically that's just true, right? So I don't know. To me, I guess like all of us saying like it's super obvious. I mean, it probably does sound obvious. I don't know. I'm trying to give the devs some credit here. Like, clearly they must have thought that like, oh yeah, 2 queues, longer queues, but maybe they got something wrong there. Maybe it is the duo thing that Flats is talking about. But I almost just kind of felt it was unnecessary as well. Like, we were in a good place with queues in season 9, and like, was there that much demand for like super wide queues? Like, you know, you're like a diamond player who wants to play with a silver, or like a GM player who wants to play with a player. Like, was that like a huge demand for that? I don't know. I just don't feel like there was.
I think it's the solo
So
players.
Aren't that the 2 different problems though, right? Because the wide queue is a fair complaint. I don't think really anybody was really asking for that. I think the problem is that
People wanted a
were
solo
definitely
queue, correct?
yeah, people were definitely complaining about queuing into duos. People were in trios and things like that. But I think that's a separate issue from like the whole wide queue,
It's
even though
like,
it's technically the same system.
okay, so people do want a queue where they're just up against most of the other solo players, but again, you
Yes.
just end up dividing the
You-
queues up, and everyone gets
Right.
longer games. No,
Right.
so that's just
I
the problem.
agree. Yeah, I
Am I
agree. I
cra-
think
Am I
go ahead.
crazy for thinking if you complain about duo and trio queues, you're just fucking being a bitch? Like,
I agree.
5
No, I
stacks
agree.
different. 5 stacks different, but like maybe trio's like the breaking point. But like, if you complain about duo queues, like what's wrong with you?
Do they have
So
the
I-
question
so
I
I-
would have for like Gavin would be like, do they have a system where they can estimate how much of an advantage being in a duo or trio is in terms of the matchmaking?
I think
you could-
they definitely know this, because I remember even in Overwatch 1 there was like a blog or something they released that was like, essentially this is like the win rates on average for like the queues, and
Yeah.
it said that like duo queue was optimal basically for like how people were winning, like
Yeah.
duo queuing was
So
optimal.
you like if you're in a duo queue and you're like, let's say GM5 on the nose, you're almost the matchmaker pretends that because you're in a duo, you're actually almost GM4 and matchmakes around that. Like there has to be a way to like calculate that. Because like, oh, you're duoing, so you have a slight advantage. So we'll still put you versus solo queue players, but we might put you versus solo queue players who are slightly higher SR than you. You kind of see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there has to be a system like that. But
So-
I agree. It's like one of those things that people complain about, but ultimately the solution has been I look at it as almost like a bug. Like clearly this was not foreseen. Like clearly the result that we have now is not, nobody wants that, and this is not going to stay, right?
So yeah, I think to try and defend the devs here a little bit, there's a couple things that they were targeting. I think one is that what we maybe are forgetting is that there was this issue for a few seasons, and it has been happening toward like post the start of Overwatch 2, where you would get this like, I am diamond and my tank is gold. What the fuck is going on? And it was like, oh well, it's because they're in a wide group, right? That was the reason behind it. It's like, oh well, someone in your team is in a wide group, and that's why you're getting put with these guys. And so it created these two opposite ends where it's like, well, I do want to be able to play with my wide friend. I want to be able to play with my gold friend. And I think that is like a legitimate grievance to have, is like, ultimately anything that removes your barriers to playing with your friends is good if it can be accommodated, right? If in an ideal world, if it can be allowed, it should be allowed. And that's essentially what they're trying to do, is they're trying to remove this whole, I'm just a random solo queue guy, why am I getting put in a game with this wide group who are like diamond and gold and making my game fucking awful, while also allowing those players to be able to play in a way that facilitates them. And of course, on this podcast, we have advocated for a long time on like, let us stack in GM, right? Like this was Sam and Flats, like, you know, it was like their bingo card, like, let us stack in GM. Mm-hmm. So they were trying to facilitate those things. And I think those are good ends to facilitate, right? Like it's like everyone should be able to stack. It disincentivizes you from smurfing, for example, because this is the number one thing people would say is like, hey, I'm master and I can never play with my gold friends or whatever. I have to smurf. I have to go to an alt account and smurf. Okay, well now you can play on your main account and play with them. And the downside is you're going to get wonky games and you're not going to get much SR, but that's what you asked for. And I think that all of that in theory, I think is totally fair. I think it's I don't care if I want to play with my gold friend. I'm not playing for SR, or I shouldn't be playing to min-max my SR. I'm playing because I like them. And so anything that eases that is good. It's just the problem is, as Spilo said, I think this is essentially, we have to look at it as like a bug or perhaps an oversight if we go to Flats' POV, where it's like the duo thing is an oversight, right? It's like not just being like, surely duo queuing in GM will not break the system. Although, again, there will be some people, as you said, who like, you know, there are notable members, famous community members who will, you know, min-max with GM. They'll, you know, like find the lowest GM and highest, and they'll do these things. But fuck them. Like, we can't stop the enjoyment of every duo queue for those people, right? So that's an oversight. And then I think the long queue times are essentially like a bug. Like something is fucked up. I don't know. I implicitly trust Gavin and that squad enough to know that they wouldn't be dumb about it. Like they wouldn't be like, we're just, oh, I thought you guys would like a 2-hour queue. What do you mean? Like, you know, there's obviously something fucked up. So I think I'm willing to give them a bit of leeway on this, basically. I know it sucks right now, but I think that they will get it right, and it's a good system overall.
Yeah, I mean, that's just my question, right? Is like, do we really need this? I mean, I guess you've kind of declared that you do think it's a good system. I'm just like, when I saw it, I was like, I can see why some people would want this, but at the same time, I'm like, it doesn't really seem that necessary. Like, do we really have to have
I don't
this?
think it's going to affect most people. Like,
yeah,
the
exactly.
only reason it broke it, the only reason the system is affecting people is because of the duo queue problem. Fix the duo queue problem, it's the old system plus a new system just tacked on. Like, it shouldn't even, you know what I mean? Like, it won't even become a problem. It just, the reason why everyone's still like, oh, I don't know, is because it broke the old system. Like, if the old system doesn't get broken and then this is added on, I think it's good. No?
All right. Yeah, if they can fix it, and it doesn't, like, you know, if it basically just looks like the old system but better, then I'm all for it. Sure.
My take is I'm always cool with them trying new stuff as long as they address it when it goes wrong quickly. I think like you have
which they have.
Here
Go ahead, finish it up.
They have. I mean, it seems like they've been like, even outside of like this kind of stuff, like they've been taking risks. They've been trying new things. They've been doing some wonky stuff. Some has been good. Some has been bad. As long as it's addressed quickly and getting people to actually play the game, then we're good. You know, I think definitely there's a fair point. Like, oh, how could we have not seen this coming? I mean, I don't know enough about the whole matchmaking thing to really comment on that. But I as long as it's fixed, hey, I appreciate the effort. Nice job, guys. We'll do better next time. I think like to be a functional company or a good company, you have to be willing to try stuff.
And I think it is on their known issues list now. Like they have put it on there. Like we know it's a problem. We're working on it. And like I said, I don't think it does affect the majority of players. I think for the majority of the community, it's gone down without a problem. It's just obviously for the GM players that it's been or like even
That's
maybe
always a
master
problem.
players. Yeah.
So
And
it's
this is
all the
also
big
why they
mouths,
didn't.
the
This is also why they
content
didn't
creators.
fuck them fucking content creators. This is also why they.
Well, it's true though. You have to keep them happy though, because like they are the voices of the game, you know. So
Yeah. But
It is a racket.
that's right.
we are the mafia. We do control everything. That's why they made Brig the way they did. But I think it's also why they avoided doing this for a while is because they were like, oh shit, it's gonna fuck some shit up at GM. But again, I think they can find a solution.
This has to be a priority though, right? Like it can't just be on the radar. I'm pretty sure this has to be like a big priority right now
Like hot
for them
fix
to
next
like
week.
immediately.
Maybe.
Yeah, they got to get
This
this done
week even.
super fast, right?
You'd assume so because there's a section of the player base that just cannot play functionally. Like an hour queue
Yeah.
is a cannot play. That's you can call it it's an hour queue, but it's functionally you can't play the game.
I jumped into Samito's stream and I was like, "Hey, what do you think of Venture?" And he's like, "I don't know. I'm playing quick play." He plays playing quick play the entire stream.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, you know, that's rough.
You had to this week basically if
Yeah.
you wanted to play with friends. Like SK, so last night, because it was last night it drops. Like it was like me, CarQ, and Emon, because Emon got rated like by OWCS, so he's gonna go till like end of drops. And SK ended up joining us, and she was saying she had like 150 or some shit games, but it was all solo queue, and it was miserable because every game is nobody says a word, everyone sits there and doesn't say shit. Everyone's out of voice typing, and you know. I think there's a super clip somewhere that like this generation of pros just ruined ranked, where everyone just sits out of voice all the time. No one says a fucking word. It's like it's miserable, right? Like everyone's a typing to me. Like real talk, everyone's just a bitch. Like no one says a word. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and some of them I am a little bit more vindictive of. And you know, I remember people being told don't play in voice because you can't control your fucking mouth, so play out of voice. So because you're at least when you're typing something stupid, you at least realize, oh shit, I probably shouldn't hit send on this dumbass shit. So they just play out of voice all the time, and so that's translated onto so much other stuff. And when you play solo queue the entire time, and it's why I pretty much only play duo only, because I don't give a fuck about being rank 1. I don't want to play this game every day out of voice. You have fucking some 16-year-old typing to me, fucking sitting there typing a novel on why you're a terrible person, you're bad at the game because you died one fight on Orisa because they engaged your backline a second early and they weren't ready for it, and at the same time you were walking. It's just fucking dog shit. And so at least you have a duo or hell, like the reason why people want stacking back is because you at least have some fun with friends, and it's at the end of the day, it's a video game, right? Like there needs to be a level of fun too. Like this can't be a fucking social experiment on how much the human brain can take punishment and pain without rewards, right? Like it's just not what it is. And sometimes I feel like we kind of glorify that almost a little bit too much. And people like really lock in. They're like, oh, I need, it's got a solo queue only. You gotta fight for rank 1, and and do your best every game. It's like, yeah, you can do all that, but you can also fucking play with friends and have a good time. Like there can be a middle ground. Like we were playing last night, and hell, we were like low key trolling. Like we're playing in ranked. We ended up getting a 5-stack at that point. Bowie joined us, and we were low key trolling as a 5-stack in ranked. We're losing like most of our games, but guess what? No one's affected but us. Like because we're fucking playing together and we're having a good time, and like we're talking about I don't know, we got on some random like rant about some shit, and we were all just talking for like an hour. We're like, oh yeah, we're in a ranked game. like oh shit. And SK was saying like those games were a bajillion times better than her whole week of playing ranked, and like was genuinely sad playing ranked that week because of how bad the games felt, with no one talking, no one says a word, everyone just sits there. You get this fucking snarky comments all the time. People just type fucking bullshit. And it's like, that's why people want your stacking. That's why people want to play with friends, because that is what gaming is. Yeah, it's competitive. Yeah, people want to try their best and want to win. But like, there's also a disconnect between like the super hyper competitive pro players who've been scrimming 4 hours every day for the last 9 months, and then they go into ranked and then fucking Billy Bob, who doesn't scrim, is just a GM player, very mechanically good, but doesn't scrim, just like good player. Doesn't know the scrim strats because they haven't been scrimming for the last 9 months. And then they're like, oh, fucking Billy Bob didn't engage on my 3-2-1 countdown, which I didn't actually say in voice, but I did the button that does the 3-2-1. But they don't actually know what I'm 3-2-1ing at all. They might have just thought I pressed a button for fun. It's just dog shit. It's just dog shit. So I don't know. I understand, people wanting the solo queue and the wide group split, and that's totally fine because playing against stacks is ass. But at the end of the day, though, as long as it goes back to the old system, I think everything's gonna be fine. I really do hate what ranked has become nowadays. I genuinely do, and it's no longer a system problem. It's genuinely a community problem, and that's it. It's on us. It genuinely is on us. And I think we need to sit here and reflect on that and accept that we have helped create this problem and we are part of the problem. And I don't think people will do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is why it's good to encourage stacking, is because that is when most people have more fun and the environment of the game is more fun. And for solo queue is always shit like this. That what you're describing is, all my solo queue games sound like that. It's just okay, guys, we lost one fight 30 seconds before the first guy is going to start piping in about what's going wrong and what needs to change and who needs to swap to what. It's that's just, it is shit. Yeah, it's shit. And anything that encourages you or eases, and again, people will say this is why we need something like a looking for group again. So I think anything that encourages people and allows them to more easily create a friendly environment where you can kind of communicate and play the game properly is good. Any thoughts from AVRL or Spilo on just the whole wide, narrow, or any of what Flats described?
I just I mean I agree with Flats. I just don't know. I guess everyone could just try and speak more or encourage speaking more, but from a community wide standpoint and a population scale, I just don't know what can be done to encourage people to be better teammates.
Damage. Years,
Yeah. It's how do you begin to undo that damage, right? It's a really difficult question to answer.
Do you want my take on that? Oh, sorry.
Sure.
No. Go ahead, Flats.
Genuinely, people who are the voices, the people that people watch, they see, and that's from everywhere, from pros to creators to everyone. It's all over the place. You have your creators and voice, but I can't tell you how many times that if I'm watching someone stream, even nowadays, in their solo queue, they don't say a word either because no one else says a word, and you can't even blame them because they feel like nobody talks back. But it is everybody, and I don't think it is fixable this late in the game, unless an entire culture shift happens. And I think Sam made a good point a long time ago, where the culture of stacking in this game is dead because it was killed off by Blizzard in Overwatch 1, where there was groups of friends that used to play all the time. And I'll tell you really quick, a very, very quick tangent story of when I was a Siege Pro. The original way I got to Diamond, the highest rank, originally was with my friends. My IRL friends, we climbed. We got so fucking good so fast, and that was how I got into it. And then people have work and school and other stuff, so it wasn't always the same, and people just weren't as good or didn't have the time to put into it. But we all got to the top rank as a 5-stack of friends. That was how we first got into Siege, and that's how we first got into that whole game. And if you couldn't stack, it wouldn't have never happened. And any chance of that ever happening in Overwatch has been dead for years because stacking was killed off. And I like what they're trying to do with bringing it back now. But we're so far gone that I don't know if you can really revive it that quickly. But I think it would have to be a mass wise culture shift from everyone, and I just don't think that can happen.
One of the things in my community, within my Patreon community, is a lot of the players that I'll pug with them a couple times a month, and we'll hang out and we'll play quick play and stuff like that. But one of the things that I noticed is that they a lot of these guys they play ranked together a lot. They'll 5-stack, they'll 2-stack, they'll 3-stack, they'll get into groups, they'll meet new people, and I'll be working or coaching, and I'll look in my Discord, and there's 3 people in the voice channel permanently, or 2 people or different and I think stuff like that is kind of that's how you build back like rank to be fun for people. It's like define. I don't know if it's the LFG feature. I don't know if it's like the small communities within the communities or finding IRL friends or whatever. But like I think like to make the game feel rewarding and more fun is like it's gonna be through like the social side of things because I think like that's just psychology. Like people just enjoy it more when you're working with somebody else. And if that's not the most effective way to rank up, that's still gonna be the most fun way to rank up for like the vast majority of people. So like I don't know how Overwatch would do that. I don't have any suggestions. I don't know if it's clans. I don't know if it's LFG. I don't have the solution there, but I think that if Overwatch ever did that, it would probably be either through some like end of season reward stuff or finding more ways for people to meet and socially like interact with other people and find people that are of like mind they want to play with.
Yeah, I think I agree with Flats in that it's the community who's at fault, but at the end of the day, the solution has to be like Blizzard has to do it. Like because as much as we can try and influence the community, we there's so many people who will never listen to a single content creator or whatever, or even a pro player, and it's like ultimately the game has to tell you that in-game feedback to be like you should be nice to each other. And I don't think like endorsements are enough. I do agree that like, you know, like an LFG or like a clan again, like it would be like if you imagine if like, you know, there was clans and every time you played in the stack with the clan, like if 2 or more people were in the same clan in a game, you got like clan reputation or something. And all of a sudden you have a system that's encouraging people to like, oh shit, I want to get reputation from my clan. Or, you know, you can have like sub clans within a rank or something, right? Where it's like, this is the best master clan. Like, you know, they have all the like players that they play all the time. And they're like, I don't, you know, whatever it is, that system that works, right? So I think that there has to be something looked at that. I don't know if that's even remotely on the short-term horizon. But until then, I doubt we'll see a culture shift. And I also confess, like, I've stopped commenting a lot just because it gets fucking frustrating being one commenting.
People know you
like,
too, right? Like,
that's
if they recognize your
I
SVG
get
and then they're gonna go off. They're gonna say the most heinous shit. You know, I know you know. And it's like they're gonna go after whatever it is because they know who you are and they're an anonymous face behind the internet. So
yeah, 1000%. That's why I stopped mostly. It was like, oh, you're SVB, and then it begins.
Yep.
And so you just yeah. So you just
get streamer buff as well. Like people like Flats was saying, people focusing you
Oh,
on
yeah.
team too. 100%.
you want
I've had more adventure games. I've had like 50% of my venture games as I'm leaving a spawn. I can already hear the enemy teams on far because they know I'm one tricking venture. Something like
that's wild. You know what's very funny actually? I don't know if I saw Frogger made a tweet like the other night that he's been getting flamed like crazy using the streamer mode. You know, when I play Overwatch, I get flamed all the fucking time. And since the streamer mode came out, unless someone does like the block thing and they're like very specific, like, oh fuck you, Flats, I have not been flamed like almost a single time.
yeah.
Streamer mode W.
I mean, they gotta fix the block bug, but you know.
Guess W for depending who you ask. If you ask Frogger, then no.
Why is he getting flamed? Like how?
Probably because
they
like they would have not flamed him if they known he was Frogger. Because probably he's doing like Lucio shit in the back line, and if you know it's Frogger, you're like, okay.
Oh, because they think it's a random person doing
right?
Lucio
They think it's
shit.
some random guy.
Ah, there it is. There it is.
Yeah, I've got Umar.
Like honorable tank player versus Reddit Lucio in your back line type of deal. You know what I'm saying?
I see.
Yeah. I've got Umari in my chat.
No, I'm actually Frogger, guys. I'm actually Frogger.
No, for real. I was just saying I got Umari in my chat, who's one of ML7's mod, and saying that like ML7's get flames a lot more now with streamer mode, and then like shared a clip that says, "Here's a clip of Cloudy flaming ML7, not knowing it was ML7 because it's like on a streamer mode." So yeah, that's the downside. If people like, it depends. I can understand for Flats, right? Where it's like, it depends on how people treat you depending on who you're playing. Like if it's ML7, you're gonna be like, oh shit, let's not flame in. But then like some people are like, yeah, I want to lay in. You know, the normal randoms will love laying into the streamer. So it depends on who it is. Okay, we've gone on for a while, so I won't go through every single thing that's new here. We'll save some juice for like a future podcast. But there's one thing I'll quickly address because I don't think anyone will have like too much to say about it, but it is a W, is the Ximming change, like the console change that's come through from Blizzard, which is that they've kind of essentially said they're actioning upon, what was it, unofficial peripherals is the technical term, like the unapproved peripherals, so basically Xim, which I know the console community is very happy about, and that should hopefully really help with the cheating problem and also wipe out the majority of the top 500 leaderboard on console. But yeah, Spilo, I saw you kind of put a little thumbs up type gesture there, or I don't know what is this called, guys? What is this gesture
Okay,
called?
it's the okay.
It's okay.
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 It's okay. Yeah.
So you did a little
yeah.
okay. How do you feel about this?
It's good. It's great. I coach a lot of GM top 500 console players, and every single time I get into a voice call with them, I'm like, why? How do you handle this? Like, how do you survive the mental abuse of knowing that no matter how hard you work, there's some that 90% of the games that you're gonna lose is just because some jackass is playing Cassidy and mouse and keyboard. I don't understand how they do it. I wouldn't have the mental fortitude. So hopefully, like this, like opens up the competitive environment a lot. I mean, obviously, I'm sure it's going to be an uphill battle. You know, progress is made. They find a way around, and vice versa. But like, I mean, to state the obvious, it good.
Avril?
I'm still curious as to how they're going to be able to fully combat it, because as I understand, like, you know, it can still be a pretty hard thing to detect. I mean, I don't know too much about Zimming, but I saw the response from the Zimmers. Like, there's some Zimming community Discord where they're like, "Don't worry, guys. Blizzard keeps saying they'll do something about it. They can't actually do anything about it. Our Zimming is undetectable. All this kind of stuff." Like, so I don't know. I guess I should give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the Zimming community is just like overrating their ability to like dodge being detected. But I'm very interested into like if Blizzard are going to be able to actually nail this or not, because otherwise you're going to get false detections and you're not really going to solve too much. It does seem like a very, very difficult problem to solve, because I mean can get like pretty nuanced in terms of it mimicking console inputs. So I really do hope they can solve it, but it seems extremely hard. So I don't know if they can achieve it or not.
Yeah, again, I think the technical aspects of it are obviously beyond any of our understandings, but you know, they seem pretty confident when they said like we've been monitoring the situation for a couple seasons and we think we know what's going on. It might be one of those situations as well where they're not just looking at the input, but maybe like the actual player play, and maybe you'll get some people falsely banned for not zimming, but it's looking like they're zimming. But you know, they may in that crossfire take out a lot of people who are like, this play is suspicious in of itself, like the player is moving too fast, and you know the crosshair is moving too fast, etc., etc.
The
But I
funny thing on
guess,
the whole
like-
post. No, go ahead.
I guess they like it would still be a W if they could just like nerf zimming, right? Because
Yeah.
let's say they can't 100% detect it, but they make zimming worse because now zimming has to like, you know, the zimming has to be a worse experience so that it doesn't get detected as easily. That's still like a kind of like a minor W. It's still like half solves the problem, even if it's not a full solve. So maybe it's still fine, you know.
I love that. What was the terminology they used in the dev report or whatever, which was like talking about how like, you know, if you get in the future, if we catch you zimming, then what they said something about like you're only allowed to play quick play and
Yeah.
you're only allowed to queue into other zimmers. I was like,
Yeah.
what does that even mean? I've been queuing for 4 hours. You know, it's too bad we don't have enough. That was like the strangest thing I've ever read in my life, but it was funny.
Yeah, you have Zim queue and normal queue. It's like this the new wide and narrow.
Yeah. So that's
No,
even
there's-
worse than being
there's
banned
4
because
now.
It keeps you in queue for just like hours. You're like, surely I'll get a game. Surely I'll get a game. Oh,
You should have a
There's
separate
4
top 500 just for Zimmers. You know, the Zim top 500. There you go.
yeah.
This reminds me of like those funny tweets you'll see where people are like, you know what, I kind of want to see athletes on steroids. We should have a version of the Olympics where everybody's
Yeah.
juiced up and like let's just see how fucking crazy these guys can get. That's AVRL solution for Zimming. Yeah, let's have a Zim Olympics. How hard can you cheat? Just go nuts. This guy's spin botting, he's wall hacking. Like, I want to see how
Yeah.
good he gets.
Be entertaining.
It's just called play on PC at that point, you know.
Flats, how do you feel about the whole Zim situation?
Good. Thank God. Honestly, console players have probably suffered more than enough. So happy for them. But of course, though, you got to deliver. So I mean, typically in this type of scenario, like with even like cheating, right? Like there's a big fog of war aspect where you don't really want to tip your hand. The fact that they've come out and said like, "Oh yeah, we're coming for you. Like we know, we've already found you." That's got to be like an unbelievable amount of confidence. And like, you know, when you have like, you know, you're saying like the Discord or Reddit, whatever, it's like, you know, they're like, "Oh, we're fine." Yeah, of course, the people who sell the stuff have a vested interest to say, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be fine." Does that actually mean it's gonna be fine? I don't know. I hope that they're right though, and that they do have the detection already figured all out, and like they're ready to just start smoking people.
Yeah, it's rare for Blizzard to come out and be quite so, you know, confident on such a thing. Like usually they're a bit more like, we're thinking about it, we're looking into it. So I think I feel like they're exuding some knowledge here. Like they know what they're cooking, but only time will tell.
They've been very hesitant on, like, Blizzard that is very hesitant on talking about zimming at all. Like I feel like all previous conversations like, don't worry, we're figuring something out, but we can't talk about zimming right now. Whereas this is the first time they're like, okay, here's what's happening.
Yeah, agreed.
So, yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that before we move to concluding thoughts? No. Okay, well, let's wrap up for here then, because there's still some topics I'll just flag up that we haven't talked about, but I think we'll save them just 'cause in the interest of you guys' time. I know AVRL was like, I've got a 4-hour limit, SVB, so I'm gonna give him a nice little break. He's going back to back on podcasts. You're gonna hear him on.
I can go
Pad
one more
Chat
hour,
and,
guys. Yeah, it's fine. I think reinforcement will be
One more
too
hour,
angry.
surely.
We'll be good.
Yeah, surely. We'll save it. We'll maybe pick back up. We had to delay the last podcast, so that's why it's on a Monday instead of the normal Friday. Maybe we'll pick back up on Friday. So I was gonna mention like Clash, which we'll talk about another time, and also the CS controversy, the Blizzard America CS, PJ and where else the other guy was.
PJ, my boy.
Absolutely cooking people on the internet. So we'll
I
save that.
love sending people to PJ
Just
now.
report them.
Yeah,
Just
so we'll
report them.
We'll touch that another time.
I heard.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, real quick, just a funny joke. I heard. I think was it maybe I think it might have been Moist Critical. This is the level of like this is how bad it's gotten. We don't have to get into the topic fully, but like this whole like Blizzard CS customer service, like the whole swearing ban thing has become such a massive thing. Like Asmongold's talked about it. Charlie Moist Critical's talked about it. I think Charlie's name was like, oh yeah, PJ. That's like his name is Profanity Janinet or something like that. That's what PJ stands for. He just please have the profanity. Oh, it's so funny. It's like, yeah.
I will say one thing. I'm honestly shocked that Blizzard hasn't said anything. I feel like it's actually so bad for their PR that they haven't said anything. Like that whole like ordeal, whatever. But like this needs to be like damage control needs to come in like really fast and like actually make
What do you
a
want
clear
to say?
statement.
Nah.
Well,
they're
okay,
not gonna
first off,
change it, though.
but the thing is, it's like, why is that an issue now? This kind of stuff has been said for years. Why is it now a problem now? What's changed? You know, it's like the
What do you
cop
want-
pulling
what do you
you
want
over for
Blizzard
going
to
1
say,
mile an
though?
hour over the speed limit.
What do you want Blizzard to say though?
I don't know. Clarify their code of conduct or something. Because like again, it's equivalent of like a cop pulling you over for going 1 mile an
Because
hour over the speed limit.
you could
Like, since when
argue
has
they
that
have
been?
said something. You could argue that Blizzard CS have said everything they need to say, right? Like you could argue
You need
Blizzard
an
have
official
said something.
statement. You need an official statement because you're saying we have what 6 years of where you were allowed to do whatever you want within reason. Okay, we all know the reporting system was inconsistent, but for 6 years, and now we're cracking down. Why now? You need a statement. The amount of negative PR that you're getting right now, like I think that you have to say something. I think that you have to like either draw the line in the sand and be like, this is exactly why we're doing these things. This is why. The only thing that I can think of, and I will credit I think the Uncoachable podcast for dropping this one, is I think maybe they've like changed to like automated or outsourced this thing so that it's like all of a sudden picking up on all this stuff and they don't want to admit it. And so like actually like communicating more would be that they're like, oh yeah, well we're actually not like doing this, that's why this is happening. But basically the thing that they have to lose for opening their mouths is if there's something even more embarrassing going on behind the scenes. Because like, why now? Why is this a topic now? Like, why is this a thing now? Like, why is this what happened? Why is this all of a sudden like the topic to discuss?
I mean, I find it very ironic because I know multiple people that are still play this game every day that say the most heinous shit. They just have 90 accounts and nothing ever happens to them. And it's like, guys, you guys are such a fucking joke. It's not even funny. I like a lot of people at Blizzard and in the Overwatch team. I've never liked the CS team. You remember being there at SVB, that first summit where everybody explained and sat there and talked about, you know, all the stuff they've been working on, trying to make things better, and all the stuff they're excited for. And CS just sat there and just patted themselves on the back for 35 minutes. And I was like, you guys are fucking stupid. You guys are actually so fucking dumb, and your heads are so far up your own asses that you're smelling your own shit and think it smells great. Like, God, dude, anyways, I think you're probably right. I mean, like, there's a reason why you almost never get a human response. It's all automated for sure. I feel like that's known, isn't it not? Like, it is automated. Like, that's why they always tell you to report as close to the incident as possible. And there's a blog post that came out that said that they're trying to figure out a better way to make it so you can report instantly, because there's too many buttons to report mid-game. Like mid-fight, if somebody says something stupid or says something fucked up, you have to like hit escape, then go to their name, then right click, then go down to report, then you hit report, and then there's the 3 options. Then you click an option, hit the continue. Then everyone just do all the options, then you hit continue again.
Flats. Not to scare you, but I think PJ is behind you right now. You might want to turn around.
I got PJ on speed dial, dude. We're good. Fuck, dude. I sent someone to PJ the other day. I was playing quick play with like grandma and Swanks, like a couple people, like we're just vibing. They're like diamond, like on like off rolls, and we got some fucking sweat lords like hard flaming them all game in quick play. I sent that guy to PJ, and then I had to restart my game like 2 games later. Came back, boom, got the report message. I was like, damn, PJ, work quick. Hey, damn, dude, you don't fuck around. It's. I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's always been like that, and it's weird because. In instances where someone's lying, they'll say something, but if it's an actual actionable report, like apparently they can't say anything. I don't know what's up with that, but yeah, I don't know. So like I feel like there's sometimes more to the story, and that's the problem, is because there's so many boy who cry wolves of people that they post the Reddit screenshot of, oh my god, look, I got banned for this, and I'm like, yeah, why don't you show me a video of you opening it and hitting refresh, and then they just never do, and it's like,
yeah,
that's interesting. I can inspect element.
First of all, Flats has got PJ on call like a mob boss calling up a hitman. Like, yo, got to hit out. I put a hit out on this guy. PJ, take care of it. So number 2 is like, yeah, I think like this all came from the collegiate player Derpy, right? And then it came out recently that he's actually been banned like 6 times already, or he's had like 6 infractions already, and he's had like a history of this. So yeah, I think there's just like more context. There's always like way more context to the situation.
Yeah, and that's kind of we're talking about it now, so let's talk about it. So that was kind of like what is interesting about it, because it started from people being like, hey, Blizzard CS, why am I banned? And then they'd be like, well, you use some words. And obviously the comedy of it came when it was like, you use the F word and SH word, and it's like, well, we're not fucking Mormon. Sorry, I said PJ, I'm sorry, I swore there, but yeah, so it's like the draconian levels of like you can't say shit or whatever is unreal. But then before that, you guys know, you stream, like you'll get some guy coming in your chat be like, why was I banned? I never say anything. All I did was like defend myself or something. And then you look at what they've logs. You like check what they've said, or you just like that chatter and you're like, I know you, dude. You fucking steam off your mind and you just say whatever random shit. Like you definitely weren't like, I just told them to be quiet politely. Like you were dropping some shit, it. But at the same time, I do think there is an issue somewhere where like things are getting out of hand, and like there are people actioned on reports that are not fair. Like for example, in light of the whole PJ situation, I kind of meaningly, I did like a couple of streams where I was like, okay guys, we're not going to use any unfriendly Blizzard language, and we're only going to use our Lord's approved words. And I did that for like 2 streams, and then at one point I was like, oh my god, that guy barked some orders at me, I'm going to report him. Just going with the meme. And then like, yeah, also I got the message like your report's been actioned on, and I was like, whoa, hold up a minute. Like, I didn't actually think that he'd get banned. Like, when I reported a guy for yelling the N-word at me for 5 minutes, I didn't get shit for 2 weeks, but I PJ'd on him for like, telling me what hero to play, and he got banned. So it was like, it was a bit surprising. I was just like, I don't know if there is something to this. Like, I don't know what is going on. But I think
is this how you get people to use voice chat again? Because if they type, then they're going to get banned. But if you say it in voice, you don't get banned. Is that how we're going to make people talk again? Oh, Jesus fuck.
Just so they can slur in voice chat.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, I will say that I think the end goal of trying to reduce toxicity is a good one. It's just that we're not going to do it by banning people from saying fucking shit. Like,
I think you also saw what the Rise OW, like I'll link it in our Discord here, where they had like they listed all the things that got them banned. It was F, that was clean Hanzo. I respect the Casimir. Go back to it, please. Don't just play the better outlaw. That's not fair. You have a pocket, and I don't. That makes it fair. Nice shot. That scared me. GG. I respect the Cowboy. BAMF. Yippee. May we meet soon as allies rather than foes. And this was listed on the email from Blizzard as like the tag. It's like stuff like that. Like something. What's going on, guys? Like, come on. Like, is this a joke? Like, is this like what's going on?
You're talking about like the screenshot of that, though, right?
Yeah. That's true. That's true. But Blizzard CS was pinged in that. Surely you responded to that, no? They responded.
They might just be radio silent at the moment because like all the shit.
That is true. Like, nope. That is true.
Because like,
we've seen
that before. Garlic bread was a great example, right?
I don't know that
I do
example. Do you want to elaborate?
You don't know about the
Flex?
garlic bread?
I don't think so.
Oh, so some guy got banned a while. So if you have used the streamer mode, you'll notice there is a garlic bread in the streamer mode. They memed it. And so a while ago, some guy got banned and they posted their chat logs and were like, I got banned for this. And one of the things they typed was garlic bread. And so they kicked this whole stink of how they got banned for saying garlic bread. And Gavin actually hopped on Reddit and said, actually, what you've done here is you showed us a real ticket with a real ticket number that links to a real actionable ticket, but it doesn't say what you're showing. It says actually it says this, and it hit him with the nah, actually you're lying to us type of thing right now. And so that whole post got deleted. They deleted their Reddit post, and they basically just immediately ran away, right? And I have a video about it somewhere. I can find it and link it to you. It was from a couple months ago. I'm sure that would probably be a better detailing than me recalling from memory. But basically, they were they called their bluff. I'm like, you're lying. You are on Reddit. It was the #1 post on the Overwatch subreddits. Thousands of upvotes, and everyone's complaining about how they get banned all the time, and they lied blatantly. They inspect elemented. And so they got caught and they ran. They ran for the hills. And so the whole point of what I was trying to what I'm alluding to here is, I hate to say it, but there needs to be a little bit of skepticism, because there is a lot of people who cry wolf in these types of situations, and it happens in us in the streaming land as well. I can't tell you how many people have gotten cross-banned in my chat because they said something racist or something extremely sexist or homophobic in another chat, and then they get banned in my chat, and then they put in a thing and go, I didn't even say anything in Flats's chat. What's going on? It's well, we know what you've done in another chat.
If you guys look carefully, right behind Flats, you can see PJ's just holding a knife right in the back. Who controls who here? Counterpoint, they work for Blizzard, so they're the spawn of Satan. So
I mean,
that's my last point.
Funny enough,
Objectively,
you actually, Flats, you actually summoned Gavin because you started talking, and then Gavin showed up in SVB's chat. So Gavin's actually here right now.
He's always in touch. He's always around. That dude fucking cares so much and works so hard.
Wait, guys, Gavin is PJ. Gavin is PJ.
Wait a minute.
We've never seen Gavin and PJ in the same room. We've never seen him.
You confirm or deny this? I don't know.
No, I mean, yeah. I agree with Flats that my POV has always been deep skepticism when someone's like, oh, I got banned for nothing. And I do get some people who are like, ACB, I got banned in Flats' chat. And I was like, all right, great. You're about to get banned in this one too. Fucking get out of here. So I'm always skeptical of those people, but yeah, it's really hard to say who is and isn't getting falsely banned, because our examples are these screenshots that are always hard to verify versus Blizzard being we know we've got a system in place that detects people, right? So AVRL, you said you got something to say, did you, on the whole issue?
Yeah, I did think to speak to the other side, because I think we definitely have people that cry wolf and stuff, and there's always more context. But I think the whole back and forth that we did see from PJ on the Blizzard CS account, some of that did feel a little unprofessional, just directly 100%. Responding. Some of the snarky responses as well was just come on, this is a little, you're on an official account, man. Just chill out a little bit. Let's just keep the professionalism up, and let's not get, the fact that they have to start deleting tweets, that's just bad. Yeah, that needs to be addressed. And I think it did get addressed because the account stopped just replying to people and stopped directly engaging with people, especially with weird responses. So I think they did curb that, but the fact that it happened in the first place was super strange.
So
agreed.
So yeah, and I think I 100% agree, because we're kind of memeing on PJ, but that was what made PJ notorious, that he was just being a passive aggressive bitch in a professional CS account.
Joy.
Yeah,
that will go down forever in the Overwatch lore. That is the funniest thing I've seen.
It's just massive Reddit mod energy, right? Where it's just some guy who's just power tripping off of the crumb of power that he has and just being a real dick about it. I actually got some additional context from Gavin, who says that the thing about the garlic bread incident is that it was a fake ticket and it's easy to dunk on that person, but when it's a real case, I could never talk about it. So I think that's part of what obscures these problems, right? Is that again, I guess for privacy reasons, Blizzard can't be this is what happened, because then it's you're breaching someone's privacy, right? What is said between you and them is technically private, I guess. So.
I think you should just dox them and let them deal with the legal repercussions, just for our sake. I think that's the key thing.
You guys got a big legal department.
They're a big mega corporation. They can handle that. That's all right. That's fine.
What's a few lawsuits to Blizzard? We've already got loads that we're dealing with.
You got a legal team. Make them work.
Seriously, guys.
To be fair, if there's one legal team in corporate world that isn't being overworked, or that is being overworked, it's definitely the Blizzard legal team.
Nintendo's right there.
That's true. That's true. That's true. So, I mean, to be fair, there's not many gaming companies that aren't broiled in many legal battles. So there's not, hey, just one more on the top of it. Why not? We doxed a guy for the lulz because PJ really didn't like him.
WPJ.
I mean, to bring it back to any sense of seriousness, I do think I would encourage them to go harder in general on people being dicks in voice chat and team chat, because that is, again, to our discussion earlier about why people don't calm anymore. That's a big reason, is that people are so fucking obnoxious. Anytime anything happens in a video game, they're just like immediately like yapping, immediately saying all kinds of shit to you. And anything that clamps that down is good. Yeah.
I think our game, I haven't played every game in the world, but I think our game is probably slightly better for, the toxicity in terms of, like, I think there's other games with worse toxicity out there. I mean, I can start naming them if you want, but yeah,
Depends on who
I
you
would like.
ask.
Maybe it does. Maybe it's also a bit of bias here. Like, it depends on what game you play the most. So the more time you spend in one game, the more toxicity you see. But
Well, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. People complain about the toxic, oh, Overwatch is so toxic, and then somebody gets banned, maybe on an edge case, and then there's a lot of Twitter uproar. It's like, well, what do you guys want?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Good point.
I think it's always hard to compare across games. Who could really say, like, who's what? Because such like a
just a vibe. It's just a vibe.
Just
to me,
a vibe. The vibes are off. The vibes are off.
Yeah. I get a bit of vibe in Overwatch.
Because it's so anecdotal, and like, when I've been playing a lot of Dota recently, I don't even know half the flaming I'm getting because it's all in fucking Russian. So I'm chilling. I'm fucking vibing, bro. I don't even.
Perfect. So fucking funny.
I don't even, I'm not bothered. But
Yeah.
I do think that this whole like counterculture of like, oh well, you can't even say anything anymore in a video game is, again, usually red flaggy to me. When someone is like, you can't even say. Yeah, the fucking
back in
libs
my
stopping you
day.
from slurring in
my
voice
day,
chat.
man.
But my free speech.
Dude, that's what we need. We need a slur pretend meter to actually decide which game is the most toxic.
Slur per 10.
That would be wild. Well, they have the automation for it now. That's
It's
another
like-
question. Okay, last thing, my thoughts on Blizzard CS. Why are there not certain words that are just automatic, like you're banned?
Bingo.
Like,
Bingo.
why is that not a thing? I actually, legitimately curious. No passive aggressive here. Like, why is that not a thing? Like, come on. It's like there's a certain.
So
line
I
that you should
remember.
just- there's no-
I don't know if I'm allowed to say
there
this.
has to be a good. I'm not like trying to be passive aggressive. There has to be a reason that I don't understand. Like, I really don't understand. I'm just curious.
The conflict SVP just went through, and I watched all of it in like a half a second. It was great.
Okay, I'm gonna pass because we talked about Blizzard's strong legal team, so I don't want to incur the wrath.
Yeah, true.
Um,
Again, there's more PJs
PJs
accumulating as we speak.
PJ, no. Yeah, I agree that I think that like there should just be like straight up. You if you type something, it shouldn't just be that like it filters it. It should just be like, yo, you tried to say that, get the fuck out of our game.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree with you on that. There's a train of thought. I think I just generally, again, my stance is, clamp down on shitheads, and if they're like, oh, I can't even say shit in my game, it's just, you're an idiot, man. Like, it's not that hard to just be nice.
Well, people are fucking stupid. They think people think free speech means you can say whatever you want. You can say whatever you want about the government and whatnot, but that does not mean your freedom of consequence. Like, you got to say the words that left your mouth. Congrats, but like now you're not allowed to.
PJ will hit you with a
be
mallet.
part of that community. Yeah, that's called a consequence. That's what happens. It doesn't. You're free. You have freedom of speech, not freedom of consequence. Like I think sometimes people don't know the difference between those two.
And also, people, and really well said, but I also think what people forget is that, like, for all of your, like, why can't I, like, in my COD lobbies, they sucked. That's what you're fucking forgetting. It's like, in my COD lobbies, people used to say kinds of shit, all kinds of shit. Oh, those fucking suck. And nobody had a good time. Like, and you know who particularly didn't have good times? People who were the target of those shits. Like, especially anyone who was vaguely a minority was getting the shit, like, slurred at them all the time. And, like, we know, for example, how hostile gaming is for women. And it's like, there's been so many threads recently on Twitter that I've seen from female content creators talking about, like, hey, like, when you guys speak as a woman in voice chat, like, do people respond really weirdly? And they were all like, yeah, they all had their own stories of, like, how weird people are. When the minute they hear a girl talking, like, when they think it's a guy playing, they behave one way. And that's one of the most obvious ways that like you can differentiate someone who's like from a minority background in a voice chat. And it's like, yeah, guess who those CS lobbies and those COD lobbies will really shit on is women. And it's like, thank God we have more people trying to police people being fucking weirdos. So if that's the objective you're defending, like you're defending the wrong nostalgia tinted glasses.
Yeah.
Like you're defending the wrong period.
Those good old racist days, guys. Such a shame. Who
This is just
defends
like
that?
this is like that Taylor Swift lyric that I keep going around, which is like, if we could go back to an era, it'd be the 1830s, but without all the racists. I was like, okay, this is what that feels like. Where it's like we should go back to those COD lobbies, but without the racists, right, guys? Right? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Any other thoughts on the whole CS issue before we move on? Any thoughts on PJ and his ilk, AVRL?
I'm good. No, I think I've said everything I need to say.
Fair. Okay,
I
well,
I just hope we can move past not us right now. I just mean like the community. I think it was just unfortunate that it ended up being another thing that like people even outside of Overwatch dunked on us for. So less things where people can dunk on us would be good.
Yes, to be fair, I think the wider gaming community loves dunking. Like that's why I think all those big creators came in, because they were like, Blizzard fucked up again. You guys, get those thumbnails ready. Get the fucking Blizzard down
It's just
arrow.
every time I see like a giant content creator like on the Asmongold Gold level, and I see like a Overwatch video, I'm like, here we go. This is a dunking video for sure. So I just please.
Can you
Save
imagine
us.
the day? Can you imagine the day that there's like an Asmongold video where he's like, Overwatch is good? Question mark. I'd be like,
No.
what the fuck? No, Spilo is like, no.
No, well, there's people that build their brand on it. You know, at some point, actually,
No,
it's like a
the
song-
only
you
person
have to be careful.
the one person I gotta give credit for that makes positive Overwatch videos is Spilo's I Love Overwatch video. I can't. What was the title of the video? But it's the one that you had like a
I love Letter
really
to Overwatch
positive.
too.
I love. There we go. The unbelievably positive Overwatch video. So positive. It sent jolts down my spine. It was like, hang on, I got to double take. Is this actually a positive Overwatch video?
Was it
I don't think
sarcastic?
I've seen these. Yeah, it's got to be a joke, right? There's no way there's a positive Overwatch video. But yeah, there we go.
Well, I know that like they just don't do well. Like I don't think Faria will mind me
No.
sharing this anecdote, but like she made a video a while back on like how beautiful the characterization of Overwatch characters is, and like how every aspect of the game kind of leans into telling you a little bit about the character, like everything down to like their idle animations, right? Like, oh, Sombra's idle animation looks like this, and it kind of gives an insight into her being a hacker, blah blah. It's a great video, and what Faria does best, which is like breaking down these really awesome creative things. And I think she initially titled it something along the lines of like what Overwatch, like what the beautiful thing that Overwatch did, or something like that, right? And it didn't do very well. And then she changed the title to the one thing Overwatch got right. Immediately it starts performing better. Because why? Because it's got a negative, even though it's a positive video, the slant is now negative. It's like, this is the one fucking thing Overwatch did right, and all of a sudden it's getting clicked on more, because that's people want to hear, like, that's people want to hear Overwatch and Blizzard get dunked on. That's just the fucking reputation we have.
Yeah. I feel so bad for the current developer team too, because I don't know exactly when the changing of the guard happened exactly, or how much of it was like a trickle. But like, I feel like there's so many of the development team that does such a good job right now, like beyond the art team and the design team, which I think has always done a good job. Like art, and it's just always been a beautiful game. But like the design team and the balance team and the hero, like I think that they've been doing a good job for the most part. And I think like they put in a lot of hard hours in, and so like they get to inherit the PvE disaster, they get to inherit the monetization, they get to inherit Bobby Kotick, they get to inherit the total failed transition from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, and it's like, that's not fair, you know, like that's not fair at all. But so like my heart goes out to them, not to be corny, but like I know how it is in a little small way, being like in the Overwatch League scene and like dealing with a lot of criticism that wasn't necessarily fair from like the little public community. And then I think about that and I just like psychologically amplify that times like 100, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that has to be like so miserable, you know?
Yep.
So
Yeah, 100%. I think if like they had ended Overwatch 1 and then called this like new game, like if you did like a Titanfall into Apex Legends, you just called this like gay gaming, and then people fucking love it. They'd be like, yes, let's fucking love it. Like, that's all our pansexual characters. No one would like bat an eye as all the controversy they give now. Like, we got, you know, they them pronouns. People wouldn't be like all up in arms the way they are now, because it's the Overwatch brand. It's all about like, they're doing this, they're doing that, they got this fucking wrong, bring back this whole thing, they're making it woke, they're shoving their gay agenda in our face. Like, they just like all the baggage that comes with the brand of Overwatch is so, I don't know how to summarize it. It's just dead. It's just a bad branding.
It'll take years to ever undo any of that. Like years and years and years and years and years and years and years. You know.
I'm starting to see the turnaround. Like, I don't know. I probably shouldn't, but I sometimes frequent, you know, the main subs and stuff like that. I just want to see what people are saying. And like, I think the sentiment is slowly turning around where like every time, actually, even you might go to R Gaming, maybe it'd be an Overwatch post. Usually like a year ago, it'd be like 100% dunking. And now it'll be like, you'll see people defending Overwatch in the trenches. Like, no, actually, I play the game. It's clear like the people dunking is like, yeah, you don't play the game. I actually do play the game. And it's in a pretty good state right now. So, you know, I'm seeing more and more people defending the game out there in the trenches. So that's a positive turnaround. We're slowly getting there.
It's also the point where like,
going, though.
Yeah, agreed. It's also like one of those games where like the novelty of the game has almost entirely worn off. And let's face it, guys, like this is, I wouldn't say a niche game by any means, but you have to have a certain type of enjoyment to enjoy Overwatch. Like the whole ADHD MOBA MMO first-person shooter nonsense. Like it is not a first-person shooter by the traditional sense of the term. And a lot of people that like traditional first-person shooters liked it initially, not because they liked it, but because it was new and it was different. And then once things kind of started to settle down, they're going to move on, they're going to play a different game. And they're never going to come back to Overwatch as long as it remains Overwatch. So I think that like we're at a point in time now where the game is, it's Overwatch. People know what to expect with Overwatch, and it will continue to be Overwatch. I don't think it will ever be like, it doesn't have the broad appeal, I think, maybe that some games do. Just because it is so unique in that aspect. And yet that uniqueness is why we're still doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was really, really, really popular. So I don't know. I don't know if it
was really, really different, you know? Like it was like really fresh.
Yes,
like
it was really fresh. I think that's just an inevitable problem with any game. I feel like you lose the reputation eventually reaches this like low point of like general hostility. Like even if we think of League and Dota, League in particular, because it's like maybe the more publicly talked about game. Like Dota is also very, you know, has a strong community, but League is probably the one that has the more general media understanding, and people's general perception of League is that it's a shithole, right? Like it's full of people being toxic and degens and e-daters or whatever, right? Like people's reputation of League is very low. So I feel like anytime you have a game that runs a long time, you're like you're not gonna have a lot of favors. You're gonna have pissed off a lot of people over a long period of time. So it's just,
I mean, it would take big stuff to change it. Like you're talking like TV shows, you're talking like a movie or a big thing.
Here we go.
You're talking like a
TV
whole
show,
Overwatch
please.
rebrand. Like because like stuff like that really does work. Like the Fallout, dude, my TikTok and feeds are full of Fallout stuff right now because of the Fallout show. You know, and it's like stuff like that genuinely does change the way people look at stuff. And I don't know if it's correct. I saw a random tweet, so I could be wrong, but I saw like something that was like Fallout 4 was the highest selling game on Steam and EU like last week. You know, like
I got the tweet right now. I retweeted this and I got a bunch of interactions for it. Fallout 4 has had a 7,500% increase in sales in specifically Europe, I guess. I don't know why specifically Europe, after the series came out. So the TV show comes out, sales just went right through the roof. Same thing happened for Cyberpunk, right? So shit actually works.
This is going to sound maybe a little controversial, but I played Cyberpunk. That game was still buggy years later. Like, pretty buggy. The driving system was fucking atrocious. And my chat was like, Fletch, you don't know how to drive. Bitch, I know how to fucking drive. I'm telling you I do. Okay? Like, I was driving
Show them your license.
I was driving the 911, like the 911 turbo car, because like it was like the only like real car, quote unquote, that like felt like an actual car. Like it had like a little drifting and had all this stuff to it. Okay, they're all spamming fucking copium. That driving mechanic was goddamn terrible, but everyone has such a good impression of Cyberpunk now, and it like one like turnaround game of like all these things, and I swear to God, it's all from that fucking anime because I had fun playing it. It was a good story, but half the gameplay, like if you went the melee build, is you just like jumping in, going like it's so repetitive. But I had fun. I had a good time with it. Don't get me wrong. I loved the story. There was a lot of good to it, but the story was never the problem. It was super buggy and there was problems. But everyone's perceptions like, oh, it's so change because like, oh my god, like I got the jacket from the anime. That's so fucking cool. And there was like little references to certain things, and it's like, oh, I know who that is. Like I forget the big bad guy, you know, like who I forget what his name. You kill him.
Adam Smasher.
Adam Smasher, you know him from like the anime. You're like, oh, I know who that is, and it's like you have all these connections, and like that genuinely influences you. It really, really does. So like, I mean, yeah, that's me, but I feel like Overwatch is like if I was the head of marketing of Overwatch and I had all the money and all the power, and I was sitting there in my chair, the thing I would do first is I would make sure Overwatch is a good game again. Like. And I think we've made a lot of good steps, except this season I'm not a big fan of, but like we've been talking about that for 3.5 hours, right? Make sure Overwatch is a better game again. People are enjoying it. Try to fix a lot of its problems, whether it's from toxicity, gameplay loop, actual hero design, you know, is it more casual friendly? Like, and I think like the hitbox, like the bullet changes, like a lot of people probably enjoy playing more now because like they feel like they hit more shots. Like they don't even think about that type of stuff, but like they're playing all of a sudden, they're like, they feel like they're better at the game. They don't feel like they suck as much because, you know, that just happens. You know, if you're like a silver, gold, casual player, you might not play as many FPS games, like just because you don't have as good of a time because you just get shit on sometimes, and that's not fun. Nobody likes to get shit on. That's the whole reason why we have MMR. And then once I made sure the game was good, I'm dropping that anime immediately, or that TV show. Like I like instantly. And you know what? Same day, rebrand the whole game from Overwatch 2 to just Overwatch, period. Just everything goes like, we're going back to our roots. We're going back to lore. We're going back to the story. We're refocusing our world around the cool characters. And then they come back and play the game and they go, holy shit, the game's actually not that bad. And then, boom, that's it. You got to do it. Just that would be my order.
I thought you were about to say
That's
rebrand to Overwatch 3. I thought you were about to add the 3 on there. I was like, here we go.
That would be really funny, but no.
The 3 is the anime. The new thing is the anime.
Well, they did. They did drop the anime very close to like the Cyberpunk 2.0 relaunch, right? So like the timing was deliberate. So yeah.
Yep.
So I got a quote here from a great book called Thinking Fast and Slow, and it says the tendency to like or dislike everything about a person, including things you have not even observed, is known as the halo effect, a common bias that plays a large role in shaping our view of people and situations. Basically, psychology snowballs really fast in either direction. People are willing to overlook things if they get a good initial impression or something culturally happens that says, hey, that is good. They're way more likely to forgive other stuff. And not just like, oh, they tune it out. Like they just enjoy the game more. So like Overwatch, obviously, like it's hard, really, like when you dig a hole this deep, man, things snowball so quickly in the wrong direction. But like you can utilize that in the opposite direction as well. But yeah, people are definitely not objective when it comes to enjoy. Even the things that we enjoy, we're not objective.
Let's not pretend Overwatch in 2016 was anywhere near balanced or like super refined. It was probably like a messy game, but people have the most insane rose tinted glasses because the perception was super high. So we were all willing to forgive all the like the bad stuff during the early years. So you're fully right. Yeah, it's 100% true.
Yeah. Ironic that it's called the Halo effect, considering Halo's the one franchise that had a terrible TV adaptation. But you know, we'll pass that. We'll pass up on that.
Just love to take his damn helmet off. Fuck, dude, stop.
Oh god, and that is a Microsoft one, so that maybe that doesn't bode too well. Like,
shit.
Because imagine when we're talking. Okay, I'm just being a bit mean, but we're talking about how much an Overwatch anime could save us. Imagine if a bad Overwatch anime came out. Imagine if it was like really terrible, just like Reinhardt just being like, "For honor, my friends," all the time, just like really caricatures, like the Jar Jar Binks of an anime universe, just being.
There's no way they can fuck
Dude,
up that bad,
I can already see the Moist Critical video. I can already picture it, guys. I can't. It's hurting my soul already.
Okay, well before I destroy any of you guys' souls some more, let's move over then to the concluding thoughts. So we've talked a lot and far and wide about many things season 10, but and you guys were kind of largely, you know, maybe a little bit downbeat on a lot of things that come this season. But what can they do to shape up in this rest of the season? And maybe I don't want to already be like, what about season 11? Because we're 1 week into season 10. So how about this season? What can they do to kind of to turn it around in the short term of this season? So I'll take it to Spilo first. Spilo. Okay, AVRL, you go first. Go ahead.
Just cues. I'm just gonna say just cues. Immediately fixed. They already know this. Gavin's in here. Everyone already knows. I think everyone at Blizzard, it's a priority. It should be a priority. If the queues are fixed, I think like most of the problems of season 10 are gone. That's it.
That's
Agreed.
fair. Short and succinct.
Play the game. If you can't play the
Spilo.
game, it's pointless.
Barista.
I mean, just short wish list for me is just quality of life stuff for Venture, and I think I would just like to see that like looking at the hero, just like the hero list, and like with my theme of stuff, which is always going to be the hero design stuff. Like just finding like the low hanging fruit, the small adjustments, the things. What if we tweak that instead of what? Like for example, like the life weaver thing. Like the heroes may be fundamentally broken, but like instead of giving him a healing increase, can we do like the weapon swap, quality of life change, like as a buff instead? There's just I think like a lot of things that like I think we talked about like there's no real half measures with some of the bigger stuff, but I do think there are half measures when it comes to increasing the health of a hero design. Like you ready for a super spicy take? I actually think Overwatch 2 Bastion is overall like a better hero than he was in Overwatch 1. I think he's too strong for how easy he is to play, but I do think like it's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. I would be very happy if we just had steps in the right direction, even if they're just small steps. I mean, I do think it is possible. We've seen it before. But that's my wish list, although I don't think it's necessarily the most important short-term fix, but that seems to be my topic constantly, so I have to
That's
stick
your
with it. But
bingo
yeah,
card,
I agree.
Spilo. That's your bingo
That's my
card.
bingo card for sure.
You're
for
getting
sure.
added. And AVRL's is the break glass solutions.
Sledgehammer,
Yes.
break glass in case emergency, boom. Delete all tanks.
Yeah,
There it is.
100%.
So Gavin actually
Gavin,
said,
thoughts? Gavin, thoughts on deleting all tanks, by the way? I know you're in here. No, I'm just kidding.
it's not even his department. So even if he was like, yes, he wouldn't get anywhere with it. But Gavin does, on his department, he says, working on high MRQs now. So there you go.
Nice.
He's on it.
Love to
Flats,
see it.
what's your concluding thoughts?
Nerf Orisa. Nerf Fog.
Based.
Nerf Amalga. Get these
Based.
3 fucking shitter, double pumped over fucking numbers character, dog shit, bullshit, boring game mechanic, piece of shit fucking degenerate tanks out of my damn game.
Careful,
Bring
PJ's gonna
back
get you
honest
flipped. No
Overwatch.
comments.
Honest Overwatch is fucking dead. Get rid of those 3 to start. Put them back in the shitter. Put them in the toilet somewhere. We can look at them next week. But it's the start of a damn new season. We have so many issues that we got to fix, and it's just snowball effect. I'm tired of it. OWCS is full of goddamn Orisa every goddamn game. I don't even want to go into the other shit. I don't care. I know Sojourn is like, he's still really, is like the running for like the DPS category. I don't care. Just get rid of the fucking Orisas. Get rid of the fucking Sojourn, or get rid of the Hog, because Hog's waiting next because he got that buff for his fucking rebreather shit when it was the DPS passive was still 20%. Now it's 15, so he's way stronger now. And it just, you sit there and shoot the damn Hog, and he has 10,000 damage, 11,000 healing, and it's just you're having a terrible time. It's like shooting shields, but you just get the feedback. It's the same goddamn bullshit where in Overwatch 1 we sat there and shot shields and you got no feedback because you didn't get the dink 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 of shooting the headshots. Well, guess what? Now you get the same thing. We get the dink dink dink, but it's still the same goddamn thing. You're just shooting something that can't die or it explodes. I'm sick of them. Get rid of those 3 fucks and we'll look at the rest later. That's how you make Overwatch more fun for the next month.
Yeah, honestly based. I agree. I think the other part is that they also nerfed Ana progressively, so Ana's like not a great support, and she's the one thing that shits on those shitters. So
tiny detail
yeah,
with
Spilo.
Ana. Tiny detail with Ana. I'm convinced that 34.6% of why Ana doesn't feel as good is because she doesn't headshot since the Season 9 change. Everybody else can headshot easier, but Ana can't headshot easier. I don't think we want Ana to headshot, but just food for thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an aspect of it. I don't know how much of the plat Anas are headshotting anyways, but or would be headshotting anyways. But yeah,
True.
that and also the
Is-
obviously the healing not being as good anymore.
A lot of heroes don't headshot though. Is that really an issue? I don't think that's a
Just
major
for character
problem, is
with
it?
a sniper weapon. But yeah, I don't want to derail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's something potentially there, but I think Ana just definitely.
I would not want to see Ana headshot personally. So,
No,
just
I
saying.
agree with that. Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
It's risky to introduce sniper characters like that.
Yeah, all of a sudden we're getting absolutely farmed by Ana. Like you thought it was bad enough that it were DPS Anas when she just body shotted. Now, wait till they're 2-tapping you. But yeah, I think I actually agree with Flats. I think like in terms of like they can't readily drop big system things, right? Like that's just not how. Despite what the internet likes to believe, they're not sat with a bunch of system changes waiting to drop in case some Brad PR happens. They're like, shit, PJ went off the deep end, drop a new hero. Like that's not how it works, right? So they can't change like big picture things on a dime, but they can change the balance, and they can, you know, just dumpster the annoying fucking heroes. Like I know that there's someone out there who's like, go ahead, Flats.
Never ending. It's never ending. Every damn season, it's one of them. I'm sick of it.
Legit.
Just fucking send them all to the farm together.
Flats,
Don't send
I'm
one
gonna
to the
sound
farm.
like
Send all 3 of them at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. I just execute.
I want my Flats moment. I told you. I was like, one of the first things I said in this podcast. I don't even know how long it was. I remember the first one was like, you need an Overwatch block list. You need to either we need to bring these characters up to speed in terms of their skill, or you need to say these characters are not allowed to be meta. I understand that you can play them, but it's not right. It's unethical.
Yes.
We need a government agency investigating this. That Winston, Ryan are suffering at it. It's not ethical, man.
Winston, Ryan, I don't, people will probably complain about D.Va because D.Va's kind of annoying with a really 3-second defense matrix, but I'd rather take the 3-second defense matrix D.Va over the fucking Hogs, over the Orissas, over the fucking Malgas. I'm tired of hearing, I want to literally want to die every time I have to deal with that dog shit. And never mind the Hog, never mind that you sit there and shoot him an hour, never mind the Orisa which just either doesn't die or you goddamn explode. I'm sick of it. Let's just accept that not every hero in Overwatch needs to be dominant at all times. Stuff happens. You have like Sim moments where Sim's really not that good right now, other than TP out of spawn. Yeah, it should probably get a little bit of help here and there, but they're not having a good spot because they had to nerf her because she was kind of taking over again. I get it. You have Junkrat moments where Junkrat's really not that good in certain, but like in other ones, he like can be kind of niche and kind of be good, and that's okay. And let's take those fucking dog shit stand there tanks that are so annoying and nobody likes to play and nobody likes to play against. And if you do like to play them, I'm sorry, but fuck you. I'm sick of it. Send them all to the farm at the exact same time. Not 1, not 2, all 3. Boom. Make my Overwatch great again.
Flats is about to get banned on all the Hog and Malga and Orisa main subreddits, just like Jay got banned from the Symmetra main subreddit.
They're already they've probably already had him on the list, but they're already typing up their threads right now, just like fuck this guy. It is. Well, I mean, it's always like I
haven't gone to war with every subreddit already. I'll fight you too. Fuck you.
True. I mean, at the end of the day, I understand the POV of people who are like, well, I'm a Hog main, don't I deserve to have fun? I get it, but no, you don't.
No, your fun ruins everyone else's fun. Fuck you. That's why we got rid of DPS Doomfist. We got rid of DPS Doomfist because DPS Doomfist ruined all the support players' fun. And all the support players like, yeah, this is really great. And all the Doomfist players like, oh, this is really sad. Nobody fucking cares, dude. Shut up.
It's just like
they just moved to tank.
Yeah.
I just think that there's certain heroes, if they make the game state so miserable, which clearly we've demonstrably seen that when Hog and Orisa are meta and Malga is meta, that like everyone's just fucking miserable. I think that's enough justification. I don't think we need it's not a fucking egalitarian system where it's like, well, every of these heroes needs to have rights. The fucking digital character, they fuck their rights. Fuck Hog mains. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, they don't need to have equal playtime and all that. Like, send them off. Send them off.
Fuck your win rate.
I
want it lower.
Yeah, literally. Like I think it becomes irrelevant. Like the win rate, pick rate thing has to come second to like what does this hero do when they're strong?
You see,
like when they're the meta pick.
I felt this way strongly about Mercy until I saw the sales stats for season 10 on the Mythic. I'm like, oh, actually, maybe not. Maybe the Mercies can stay. Actually, they fund this game, so I'll hate them a little less.
They pay your paycheck, you Blizzard shill.
Hey, can we get some creator codes? I'd love to be a paid shill. That'd be fucking awesome. I'm tired of being the unpaid shill. Let's get it fucking going around here. Come on now. I'm sick of it.
Well,
I'm tired of being on both ends, either doomer or shill. Hey, at least I want to get fucking paid for it. Come on, let's get it going.
Exactly.
Anyways, I'm gonna go have a check
the mail.
Yeah, we're unhinged flat story. This is where usually Samito gets after a couple bourbons down him. Like, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I basically to say, yeah, I think the best thing they can do is make the balance a little bit like less favorable towards these heroes so that people can have fun with what they have. And I think once they fix the matchmaking, which I'm pretty confident they'll do, I think it's, there's a lot of good things here this season. Like, I think Venture is great hero, great release, great addition. And the wide matchmaking, narrow matchmaking, allowing you to play with your friends is good. I think that's good. So I don't think we're far from a good game state, but I do understand why we've come to this podcast with a lot of people feeling like I'm not really having a good time. So
The good thing for me is I feel like there's just a lot of things cooking in the kitchen right now. There's a lot of things like balance wise, but also like designs and new game modes and map reworks and new heroes. Like there's just a lot of things going on right now, and there's a lot of things to be excited about.
yeah, I agree. Hopefully one of those is a TV show. Am I right? So on that note, any other thoughts before we get going, guys?
I counterpoint. If TV show was too much money, cinematics. Let's get fucking going. Okay? Because like at least the 10-minute cinematics. What was the last one we got? Sojourn? And then before that was like Kiri. We're 2 years into
The
game.
word on the street, they were going to do Roadhog Malga and Orisa cinematics, but after your recent rant flats,
Oh, they're gonna kill them off? That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
No, they're gonna do a team up. It's gonna be like an Avengers team up for those three in one cinematic.
What's the anti-Avengers? Is there an opposite Avengers like the Thanos squad and like
the Degeners, that's the name.
yeah the
They're just the villain. They're the fucking villains of the piece. So they're just fucking nobody's
yeah.
cheering.
Why
in
is
the cinema.
Orisa a protector of Numbani? That is clearly an evil character. Like they should make Orisa an evil villain. Like get hacked by Sombra, become Talon. Why not? Just go all in. Like
Oh, she used to be the original Orisa was a null sector. Remember, null sector bot. So that's where that's where Orisa comes from.
Oh, thank
That's the original lore.
That's true.
Yeah.
Checks out. Checks out. Okay, gamers. Well, I appreciate your time and company very much. So thank you to Spilo, AVRL, and Flats for joining me in another epic tirade of all things Overwatch and some things not Overwatch. And as always, please do show these guys some love. Fellas, thank you as always for your time. And if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. But otherwise, anything you want to say before we sign out?
Yeah. I am flying to Korea in like 14 hours, something like that. So I'm headed over towards. This is my one moment to plug myself really quickly because it's my first time doing this. But I'm going to be doing a bunch of IRL content in Korea over the next week for OWCS Asia LAN finals. So it's going to be 4 days of LAN, then 4 days just hanging out in Korea, talking to players, meeting people, and just hanging out and doing some sick IRL stuff. So come by my stream, twitch.tv/Avril in the coming week, and it'll hopefully be really good content. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
I will also vouch for Avril's quality of content, but only because he's had my thumbnails as
Yeah,
background
he's
for,
been
like,
giving
the
you free
entirety of this
promo.
podcast, so
I've
I have to.
been doing promo for you, dude.
Yeah, no, definitely go check that out. And AVRL, I'm sure you'll have some awesome fun and also some awesome scoops. So I look forward to that, dude, and safe travels.
Thank you.
All right, guys, and safe rest of your night as well. Peace out from me, and thank you very much. Have a good one, guys.